Hello, and welcome to the second day of TPK Con. Today, one of my dreams is going to become a reality in a form we've never seen before. TPK Stadium, a giant dungeon mastering arena. The motivation for spending my time and others in creating this stadium was to encounter new and original one-shots that can be called true artistic creations. To realize my dream, I secretly selected a couple of top DMs and GMs of various styles and game running tools, and I plan on naming these DMs Iron DMs, the invincible creators of game running skills. However, I've not actually selected any yet, but today I have two of my top candidates here to compete in TPK Stadium, and they will fight for the favor of the players and the title of Iron DM. Both of these DMs will have 1 hour to tackle the theme ingredient of today, with added elements that will be added along the way. Using all of their senses, skills, creativity, they will prepare a one-shot that has never been played before. Every battle here at TPK Stadium, reputations are on the line. The DMs will pit their artistic creations against each other with what inspiration does today bring? How will these DMs fight back? The heat will be on. I'm Purple Phil, your host, and I have with me my two co-hosts that will be joining me in commentating and judging these one-shots. So first off, I have our resident brewmaster of TPK, Dr. Tyrant. It's good to have you with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Purple?
I'm doing all right. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But it's good. We'll see how this goes, how our contestants fare. But secondly, I have with us our other co-host, the creator of Generational, a game about telling stories, Proper Nerdy. Good to have you with us today. How are you doing?
What a good introduction. Thank you for having me. I'm starving because I forgot to eat in breakfast, but I'm going to be fine.
It's all right. We'll fill ourselves up with the content created by our two contestants. So we'll start up with our first one, the DM of The Bard's Refrain and many other one-shots here on TPK. It is Sarah X Franco. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm feeling it, Mr. Krabs. I have my coffee. I'm like, but I'm excited, and let's do the thing.
Good. How are you feeling about the challenge today? You think you're prepared? You're ready?
I mean, I like this. I think this is such a cool idea. Like, first of all, I'm here for this 110%, 10%. Am I ready for this? I don't know how one gets ready for it. We're here. You're going to tell me, you're going to give me some ingredients, and I'm going to try and make it work. I feel like typically if I'm a plan GM, I'm like a plan GM, or I'm like a no plan GM improv. So like, this is a weird middle ground for me. And I'm feeling pretty good about it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I was nervous.
Cool. All right, over to our other contestant, the GM of Neon Lights Cyberpunk Red campaign, as well as other one-shots over on the Neon Lights Roleplay channel. It's Tate Washburn.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Doing good.
Hello, Internet.
I hope you're doing well today. How are you feeling about today's challenge? You think you're ready to tackle it?
I agree with my opponent, competitor. Is the right feeling here. No one can be ready. My entire life is improv. Everything is unplanned. So, I tried to not think about this until the very last second, and now I'm just going to have to completely fabricate an entire story as quickly as possible. Let's go.
That's the way it goes. Yes, today, one of the biggest challenges you guys will be facing is the time limit with the 1 hour. You have to face each other as opponents, but the time is also an opponent to watch out for. Make sure that you are keeping an eye on your clocks. I will be issuing out little commands of when we're at about 20 minutes in or 20 minutes left, and then as we get down to the last 10 minutes, I'll give some regular updates out. So I will shortly be revealing the theme ingredient for today, but as we go on through the day, at about 15 minutes in, we'll be taking a moment out of your guys' time to go through and interview you and see where you're at on your process of creating your one-shot, And then a little bit after that, after interviewing both of you, we're going to reveal an added element, some key ingredient that you'll have to add to your one-shot somewhere. And it'll be maybe a little bit less important than the theme, but it's also going to be there as something to add in. And then as well, with 20 minutes left on the clock, I will probably have another interview with each of you and then reveal a final twist, an added bit of craziness to add to your one shot and make sure it fully fills out a couple different details, essentially. But as we go through and finish up, the timer will run down. We'll take a quick break, and then we will go through and have you each present your one shots to us, and we will review, judge, and eventually we'll leave it up to our audience to decide. Without too much further ado, I will begin by revealing our theme ingredient for today. They come as hard as rock and as hot as a bed of coals, quiet as a soft breeze, or turbulent as a rushing river. These creatures are the incarnations of earth, wind, fire, and water. But there are many more than just those four. From the stone statue gargoyles to the red-hot salamanders, to the gem-eating Zorn, or the colorful variety of mephits. Yes, there is much, much more than that even, but today's special ingredient is elementals. DMs, are you ready?
I am now, for sure. 100%. No question.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So now, TPK, with an open heart and an empty table, I ask unto you, in the words of my uncle, the French phrase that will cause these Iron DMs to begin their battle. Allure à donjon! You may begin.
Perfect.
You definitely said it perfectly.
Nope. Yep.
That was
I know how to speak French. So, yes, our DMs, you are free to start. I have started the timer for 1 hour, and you can take us away, and please remove your headphones as we will start discussing what we think you might be coming up with. All right. So we have a timer ticking up, and they are going to be working on elementals today. There's a lot of different types, and one of the main things that they're going to have to choose from here is what level they want to start at. This is all 5th ed Dungeons and Dragons, but elementals come in all different flavors. You can have a first level fight against some mephits, or go up to some of the crazy homebrew options for 15th level elementals. Ty, I know you've recently spent some time homebrewing some very large, scary elementals. What are your thoughts on elementals? Where would you start if you were going to do something like this?
Well, you see, you are right, and thank you for bringing that up. I have spent some time recently developing 10 individual elementals for an expansion that I'm working on. 6 of which are fusion elementals that kind of fuse the different elements together. So we have lava, steam, swamp, sand, and a few others, storm, I believe. And those can be really interesting because it's interesting to see what happens when the different elemental planes begin to kind of fuse together at their edges. There's an interesting. So okay, when I think of elementals, at least before doing my research, I'm thinking of the traditional elementals. The embodiments of these elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. Like you said, there are many other types of elementals that some would probably surprise you if you were told that they were elementals. But for that specific niche of those embodiments of those elements, to me, there wasn't enough content based around that. And so what I decided to do is I saw that there was a SRD supplement that added elemental myrmidons, which are basically 2 steps up, 2 CR ratings up from the base elementals, and added a few different things, made them a little cooler and fleshed out. And so I kind of ran with that and made fusions of those. And then I thought, okay, so if there's these, and we know that they can get stronger because we have these like knight variants of these elementals, what would the rulers, what would the like kings and princes of these elementals look like? Or even just like the nobility, because the kings and princes are kind of discussed in Princes of the Apocalypse.
Right.
And so I made CR13 variants, greater elementals as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can consider here. But if you're looking through just basic elementals, you have elementals that range from, like you said, like a CR18 or 1/8, which is super easy. Like you'll be making level 1 adventures out of that. And just throwing those at people. Mephits are really interesting because they kind of act in a Fey-like manner, but they are elementals.
Yeah, actually, Mephits are really interesting because they're originally actually devils. If you look in the older versions, only in 5th Ed where they actually turn to actually be elementals. So it's very interesting to like see those type of things. Or you also mentioned some of the creatures you wouldn't expect to be elementals. I know I was looking up for this and some of the other ones, and I noticed flail snails are actually elementals, which completely baffled me because they definitely look like a monstrosity. They're very cool creatures, but the fact that they're elementals is kind of a neat little thing. There's a lot of variety here.
Yeah, that's a flail snail. Jeez. I actually have never heard of that. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
They're a fantastic creature.
But you do have what's interesting is in standard content, you do have elementals that range from CR18 all the way up to CR23. So you do have a good range there that you can toy with, and some of the higher CR elementals that you'll find are those if you think of like Greek mythology, like the Titans that the gods fought, those are the kinds of things that you're going to be seeing, like Leviathans, which are just like sea-sized water elementals, or Elder Tempests, which are kind of like Typhon in Greek mythology. But then you also have really interesting elementals like the Zaratan, which was, if you watched Harper Investigation Season 1,
island turtles, right?
Some spoilers. Yes, we found a baby Zaratan in the sewers underneath Waterdeep, and tamed it and brought it home with us, and it eventually grew to be the size of an island. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with elementals. There's phoenixes, there's a lot of stuff. But proper, what I'm really interested in is what do you think our contestants are going to do here?
Well, so
where are their mindsets?
This is a fun combination of hosts because you went deep dive into all the stuff I don't know, which is all the mechanics and the lore, and I'm here sitting like I'm thinking more about, okay, if they're writing a one-shot, has to be some kind of story, some kind of reason that an elemental is introduced into the game for whatever reason. And so
this is exactly why I gathered you two as my co-hosts, because I knew you would have completely different aspects you would look at.
So also speaking of mechanics and like writing an elemental, Tate, just before we started recording, said, I'm not going to even look at the lore. I'm not going to look at the rules. I'm just going to write it. I'm going to homebrew everything. And I think Sarah might do something similar. I'm not totally sure. And so I feel like what you could do with that is if you know D&D well enough, you just write your own elemental. You can make a completely different elemental than one that's in the book if you really wanted to. Or you could base it off of one that's in the book and reflavor it in some way. I know a lot of really good sessions that have had like, this is the enemy, but reflavored in a fun new way. And I know that Sarah and Tate are gonna be good enough to like do that in fun, interesting ways. I want to like, if I were given this challenge, the story is the first thing I would go to directly. And so, deciding what element of elemental you would choose is the first thing I would do right away. I would be like, do I want to tell a story in the forest and tell like maybe a water or a forest elemental, not forest, earth elemental, but or if you want to go really dark, you could go into some of the more obscure elements. It could be I'm still not totally sure about the what are they called? The elemental planes. There's so many of them, and I think I want to be edgy and like choose like one of the more ridiculous ones, like elements of glass or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. And so I think for a one shot like this, if you want to go safe and pick one that people understand well and you understand well, you could write a very generic, good D&D adventure. Or if you want to go something crazy, that might be more appropriate for a competition like this because it's more uniquely yours. And you can add whatever powers or abilities that this elemental has and make it part of your one-shot that is an issue. Or, sorry, one more thing. Are you fighting the elemental or are you working with the elemental? Is it the bad guy or the good guy? You're not, like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. But
that's really interesting you bring that up. I'm actually I'm peeking in a little bit on what each of our contestants has been working on already.
All right, I can do that.
Tate actually has a little outline already starting up with his theme of elementals. He's kind of already mentioned a small town that would have many elementals around it. I don't know if he's planning on those being the elementals live in the town or they work with the town or they surround it, but he's already kind of listed genies, grand elemental beasts, or perhaps mephits. He's kind of got a little interesting little outline there of planning on making a town, a small coastal one. So we'll have to ask him about that. But it's a very interesting idea of what's there.
It sounds like Tate is not writing a one-shot, but writing a full campaign with a new lore for a new part of Faerun. I would buy that book.
Yeah, I mean, it looks very interesting. It's a good place to start. He's kind of gathered what his lore of what he wants to tell is. So I'm very interested to ask him more.
Question here for both of you, kind of stepping away from mechanics and even fantasy and D&D in general. What do you think is going to be a success strategy when it comes down to time management and prioritizing different tasks here for our contestants? To me, the ideation stage, so essentially we have an hour, right?
Yep.
If I was one of the contestants, my first thing would be I'm going to give myself 10 minutes, and that is going to be my planning stage. That is going to be like my outline. I'm making this outline, making this rubric. And this is coming from like, doing like essay prep stuff for different exams and stuff. But I think if you have that outline starting off, and like these are the different things I need to hit, right? We know that there's going to be a couple more twists that we need to add in. So like we put those to the side. We make sure that we have room. We don't make anything too concrete until we know what the twists are. This is the story I want to tell. These are the different mechanics. This is the monster, blah, blah, blah. And then once you have some of the more twists, then you start to really build out that session. What kind of stuff do you guys think they should be preparing for in this time?
Definitely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Creating an outline like what we see, I've looked at and seen already that Tate's kind of gone is definitely the place to start. Figure out where you want your general story to go, and if you figure that out, again, we do have twists and elements we're going to be adding in here that they're going to have to find spots to fit in. Leaving space to add those in might be a good strategy going through. But although an hour isn't a long time, it is a fair amount of time. You can spend some time to focus on a couple things. I know Tate has already said that he likes to draw a lot of maps, and he was planning on maybe drawing one if he thinks he has the time for it. I'm kind of interested to see where that goes. I know Sarah's a writer. I'm very interested to see how she's going to write in these elementals into some sort of story. I think it'll be very interesting. I think kind of the main thing with an hour of time, you got to focus on what you're good at. You got to find your spot of what you can get done the most effectively, and you gotta push that as your selling point.
I was gonna say the same thing. We just had yesterday was the finding your role-playing niche, which feels appropriate because in this you want to stand out from your competitor, so you choose the thing that you are very good at and are well known for, and so you don't have to like stretch your imagination too far. Pick something you know well and you like to do, and that'll do well. Oh, and Sir Heck mentions this too. It is like also sort of a world building panel because you have to think about what elements make up your part of the world you're putting this one shot in. Unless you choose something like Waterdeep that you kind of already know, you still have to engineer some drama in Waterdeep. So whether you make it your own or make it something well known, you're going to have to find a way to like make a twist on your own content.
For sure. Ty, you're muted, sorry.
I am interested. I'm peeking into Sarah's Roll20 right now, and I see that she has selected a standard fire elemental. I am interested to see, and maybe I don't know if Sarah made us all GMs to see if there's more notes, but I'm interested to see. Oh,
she's gone in and copy pasted the whole thing in there.
Oh. Also grabbing an air elemental. This is going to be interesting.
It looks like Sarah's going to be toying around with multiple different elementals. That could be very interesting. Maybe earth, wind, fire kind of thing.
She is known for Bards of Range, so possible. There is also the point that these elementals have HP of 102 and 90, which does that put that kind of mid-level? I'm not totally sure, really.
So as of right now, it looks like technically we're gonna talk a little bit of mechanics here. Each of these
I'll just zone out for a sec, okay?
Yeah. Each of these standard elementals is meant for a party of 4 to 5 players of 5th level, and that would be a medium-ish to hard encounter. With multiple elementals, that kind of pushes it up to a CR7 fight. If she adds any more, it's going to push it up a little bit more and a little bit more. So Sarah's looking at least into tier 2 content here, possibly pushing into tier 3, depending on how many more elementals she adds.
Well, we are closing in on the 15-minute mark. It might be a good time to pop in over with Sarah and see what she actually is using these elementals for and what she's planning for what level or what difficulty. So,
shall we go say hi to Sarah?
Yeah, let me pop over with a message and bring her in. Hello.
Hey, friend. What's going on?
Doing good. All right. Let's. So we've noticed you've added a fire elemental and a air elemental here. How's it going? What's your plan right now?
So right now I'm really just developing the overall plot line of like what do I need them to accomplish. So right now I'm like starting with, and I don't know if you guys, if you want, you can go in. There's a handout for the general overlay, and let me go ahead and save this. Session outline. So this is typically how I make a session. Normally I do it in OneNote, so I'm copying pasting over because it's just easier that way. Show to player with everyone. That should pull it up. But
you've written so much in 15 minutes. Damn,
I'm trying. So what I'm trying to do is establish like what's the hook, right? Because that's where everything goes. From there, you can pretty much improv out in a one shot. But if I have an idea of this is where I'm starting and this is where I want to end up, that's pretty good. So right now I'm working with the understanding of like, here's a young knight that you've like wandered upon. She's inviting you to stay at her camp and warning you to not go further ahead. And she's going to be like, hey, I'm doing this thing, blah, 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 all the things. But the idea is that she's going up into the mountains to face this warlock that's like summoning elementals down into the valley, and it's a whole deal. My plan is that there's a personal interrelationship. I'm still working out the details there, but there's an interrelationship between these two. The idea that I just had as I was writing it is that Orla, the woman that they're meeting, is actually a warlock who's bound to a powerful earth elemental. Listen, guys, I'm the bard's refrain. I can't help myself.
We did call it. We
good.
did call it.
So even though I'm not leaning into a lyric or anything like that, I think I like using stories around to help inspire me. So right now I'm pulling from The Hero and the Crown. I'm pulling from Tamora Pierce's stuff. I'm pulling from like band names. I'm pulling like any inspiration. I'm like, yes, go. And right now I'm just trying to get that first introduction, because if I can get a feel of how that first interaction with the NPC is going to go, I feel like I can go from there. I'm trying to leave it pretty open as well, because I don't know what twists we're going to get. So I'm trying to I've started with fire and air because those are fun. Like I just think they're the coolest ones. I now have a reason to pull in earth if I want. And that's where I'm going for. So from here, I'm going to plan out my scenes. It's a one shot. You don't need too many. I'm thinking like 1 or 2. I have a bunch of map packs that I'll probably pull from, because your girl ain't making maps in an hour. From there, I will kind of like build out the dungeon, so to speak, and say, these are the clues to like hint at the larger story. Why is this warlock doing this? I like it when baddies feel like they have a legit reason for doing what they're doing. But for this, I'll probably I haven't decided if I'm going like full evil or if like, should we introduce the moral quandary here? So still working through that. But that's kind of the gist. If I can get the intro and like the hook right, everything else will fall into place as I go, because the ideas will percolate as I'm dragging and dropping and bringing this stuff in. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you the best of luck, Sarah. One thing from a mechanic standpoint, what level party do you think you're gonna run this?
So I like to go with level 5 for like one shots. I want to give them like something fun to work with. Okay. And then like depending on like, again, narratively speaking, once I get that how I want the story to feel, I can go from there. But baseline 5, always 5. Okay. And then if I'm like, it feels more important to have more or less or whatever, I'll tweak from there.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Good. Any other questions for Sarah, quick?
No, let's jump on over to Tate. Or Proper has.
Nope, I'm good.
Question.
Yeah. All right.
Good luck, Sarah.
All right. Take your headphones out, and we'll jump on over to Tate.
Heard my name.
Oh, there you go. Yep, you're here. Yay! All right.
Welcome back.
I will save notes so you have the most updated version of them.
Cool. We are already kind of looking through them a little bit there. Noticed you had a small town with many elementals. Are those the villagers are elementals, or are those around it, or kind of thoughts there?
No. So the idea I had is, if we're gonna do elementals, I love the interplay of elementals. Like they have, because they're forces of nature, the beings that live in them have like a different sort of personalities, but they're their own isolated civilizations. And so I had this idea, it's like, so a small town in the material plane, just kind of doing its own thing, and just happens to be in a location where all the elements sort of meet, was unfortunate enough to be chosen for a contest between the elemental planes.
Interesting.
Out of nowhere, elementals just sort of appear and build a stadium like right outside their like dock, I guess, like where they normally get a bunch of travelers. And I want to make it a town that, 1, relies on a lot of fishing, and 2, relies on trade, so they have a good reason to be like, hey, we need this to end now, like as soon as possible, and immediately hire out adventurers. And then I've sort of built this tournament. I like the idea that they do sort of a round robin. Everybody has a contest with everybody, and it can technically be any contest, except they're all pretty one-track mind. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna fight each other. And it's just like slowly escalating in power every time. And the problem is that one element has to beat all of the other ones without losing in a round to win. And because the elements are very balanced and the only thing they're doing is fighting each other, that just doesn't happen. And so it will keep on getting bigger and bigger until it causes like a natural disaster.
Cool. I like the idea of an arena kind of coming in, and then four factions. Is that where you're going with the different elements?
Yeah. And like mixed elementals that are multiple kinds are kind of like recruited to one side or the other, and are maybe neutral.
Yeah.
And I also want there to be a certain amount of
your balancing of your elementals. The fire, gets snuffed out by the water, but creates a bigger fire from the wind, and the wind raids. You kind of get your little what counters what, and it leaves it at a balance for the players to kind of figure out where to tip it.
Yeah, and so I also wanted there to be multiple solutions to this. You'll see in the updated version of this that the potential solutions are like, yeah, you could join one side and just help them win. Because they don't actually have a rule where like you have to be an elemental of that nature to join. You just have to be on their team, like Olympics rules. Or you could convince them to have a contest that's not fighting, if you could find one side to propose that, and then these elemental things wouldn't cancel each other out, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know, do a cooking competition, a chess tournament, I don't know.
Make a one shot.
Or you could convince them, or like you could sabotage one element that's definitely going to knock someone out of their beat 3 winning streak. Convince the tournament people that like move the arena maybe, or convince the elementals, like the leaders, to be like, hey, this tournament's dumb. Don't do this. This is a bad idea. I also wanted there to be a certain intrigue. Like there's definitely people in these elemental planes, like part of the politics, they're trying to get this to keep on getting bigger and bigger. Specifically to like overthrow the people that are in charge, especially for like the Fire Nation that has a very established, like, this is the city of brass. It's really volatile and dangerous. But yeah, there's probably some person in the fire plane who's actively trying to make this escalate so that the person in charge of the city of brass has less resources so they can then do a coup.
So is this I'm interested, what is the setting here? This is a small town on the prime material plane?
Yeah, I started sort of sketching that town out. I don't know, I have a love of like small, like fishing villages as a setting. I think I'm gonna make it sort of Italian feeling, just in like flavor. And yeah, this is just the town and maybe the name of the nation are all I'm going to define. This is not set in like the Sword Coast of Faerun or anything like that. Right. This is just a place that has whatever fantasy creature you want.
I think it's really interesting that these elementals, these like leaders of elemental society in the elemental planes are like, well, we're not going to have it anywhere in the elemental planes because like that'll give an unfair advantage to one side or the other. So fuck this town in particular and go.
Yeah, I haven't defined it yet, but I like the idea that perhaps this town is quite close to some volcanic activity. So actually they picked this town not just randomly, but like, no, this is actually one of the several places on the material plane that is so evenly everybody that we can do this.
Yeah. So it's got, it has, obviously it's going to have mountainous terrain because it's volcanic, and then it's going to have the fire, but it also could be next to an ocean. And I think that's a really cool detail there. It's nice.
Right,
so,
Oh, guys, I was about a little quick 5-minute interview there. I think we're at the time to unveil the next element. If we want to go back to the start of the screen, and we'll bring in Sarah. We will do that. So I'll just call Sarah in. All right, so we're about a third of the way in, and it is now time to unveil the second element that you guys will have to add into your story in one shot in some way. Whether it's a flying dart or a buzzsaw, from the constructions of giant Rube Goldberg machines, or a simple fishing line with a bunch of cans connected to it, there's one thing that can always slow down an adventurer and make them think twice. That's right. Today's additional element, it's a trap.
Dope.
So at some point, you need a trap in your one-shot. However you want to define that is up to you.
It's a trap.
with that,
Yeah, we
you
gotta
guys
do it.
can
We gotta do it.
go back to continuing your construction with that added element in there.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you.
Perfecto.
There we go.
I
trap.
am interested. With the addition of the trap element, I think it's going to be really easy for Sarah to incorporate that into her one shot. I am interested to see how Tate does that, with it being more of a kind of a town, dispersion type.
I wonder if
adventure.
he's gonna put it in the arena some way, do kind of like a Coliseum, pit trap or something like that in the middle that maybe the players or the elementals will end up using. It'll be
like gladiatorial almost. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or even just it could be something that isn't intended to be a trap, but ends up trapping the players. If they need to get to this arena that is in the middle of the ocean, evidently, then perhaps it's something that is based around the fact that there's a bunch of elementals at play. That just their sheer magic is a trap.
Yeah, I know some people in the chat are talking about metaphorical traps or political traps. These sort of getting yourselves in trouble without realizing it.
Do you perhaps get on the wrong side of the elementals, and that one shot turns into a whole campaign of you getting totally fucked by elementals?
It could be interesting. Tate was saying that there's other parties interested in keeping this tournament alive. For whatever reason, it might be interesting for one of those outside parties to set a trap for the players. And so that kind of introduces the narrative of there's interest in this other than just the elementals.
Also,
so it's interesting to see what he does with that.
Also, in Tate's, there was the option that perhaps you join on one of the sides of the elementals and help them win so that the competition can be done with. And if that happens, you can easily make the trap, your competitor has set up a trap to hold back these humans or these PCs that are meddling with the affairs of the elementals.
Yeah. Well, a question I would ask is, in popular media or in TTRPGs or games, what is everyone's favorite trap? Just to kind of get that ball going.
Good question.
For me, classic example has to be the rolling boulder in Indiana Jones.
I knew you were gonna say it, but
Right.
What kind of traps do I like? I don't know. I don't like traps. I think they're an annoying mechanic in tabletop role-playing games. It's far more interesting to have a trap be a person. So I guess political trap would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think Indiana Jones comes up great for traps. I do like the rolling boulder, but I think my personal favorite is in the Last Crusade, going with the penitent man. I like the idea of a riddle telling you the solution, or the solution being given to you before you get there and having to piece it together. Seeing all these men coming off with their heads cut off and realizing penitent man bows and dodging under the buzzsaw at the last second. I think that's one of my favorite classic traps, I think I'd say. But there's a lot of options there too. You get things like where it's a trap comes from, setting up a bait and switch of here's the opponents to fight. Actually, my Death Star is fully operational and I'm going to destroy all of your capital ships. You kind of get those situations where you can be baited into something. It'll be interesting to see how they take trap as an element and decide to either use it directly as a trap or as like a metaphysical getting yourself in a sticky situation.
Yeah. What do you think? So, and I know we just talked about popular traps. In their minds right now, what do you think is going through their heads in terms of adding a trap to their situation?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, I don't really know. We didn't really hear what Sarah plans to do as like a location, kind of more of a story there. So if they're traveling into a dungeon, maybe there is a pressure plate trap of either like some flying darts or Perhaps the trap is triggering the elementals. I think that could be an interesting way to play with it, of combining the two into their effects. Yeah, with the arena and Tate's plan, I do think I'd go with the Roman Colosseum pit traps, or some sort of trap that gets all the elementals in it at some point. That's my guess. What about you, Proper?
Well, I was thinking about Sarah's one shot, and I'm thinking about the fact that you have there only 2 NPCs. Tate's, you could have literally a whole town plus all the elementals as NPCs, but in Sarah's, there's just the 2 and the party. And so in that situation, I feel like having that NPC there is important. So if a trap didn't affect the party, but instead affected the night that you're supposed to be working for, could lead to more disastrous, to a more emotional trauma for the party, which would be really interesting, as opposed to having it be something that the party falls into or gets attacked by. If somehow your benefactor is pulled into the situation and hurt in some way, that could make your life a lot more difficult, and also give a bit of a story kind of like emotional draw in to the rest, to getting this done without hurting anyone else.
I just saw a comment in chat from Echo. The trap is the town. The town is actually elementals. That is interesting. One thing though that kind of sparked my mind a little bit is, what if in Tate's instance at least, what if the tournament is a tourist trap? And that is exactly why the third parties are wanting this tournament to continue. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways. Like, I think someone said metaphorical trap earlier, and so like there's a lot of different ways you can incorporate this idea of trap. So it's good to think outside of the box.
Yeah, that's really cool. Speaking of questions from chat, we actually had one a little bit earlier in our first round, but I do like to come back to it and maybe discuss a little bit more about how we're going to be judging this a little bit. So Last HP earlier kind of asked, what is the benefit of establishing the settings here, of using an established setting or making your own, and kind of how we're going to look on this as favorably or unfavorably. So I'll kind of at least start on the back half of that, of favorably, unfairly about the new content. We're judging what they've made, so using a pre-written setting is totally fine, but that's not necessarily added points by any means. Where if you're going to come up with your own ideas and pitch this as part of, this is the story I'm telling, those are definitely going to be the sort of things that we're going to be looking for and judging. And remember that when it comes down to it, we're judging, and we're going to give a little bit of our critiques and what we like, but the plan here is we're going to actually be putting both of these one-shots up in a Twitter poll, and let all of our viewers go out to Twitter and vote on which ones they think they would like to play in, is going to be the main goal here. So if for you find that you want to play an established campaign setting, then yeah, that might be one of the things that you use to make your decision. But I think from my point of view, at least, where I'm going to decide on that, I would definitely lean towards whatever sounds coolest. So.
Right. I do think that there are going to be added points for being able to kind of drop this one shot into any setting. I think that being able to incorporate this into a pre-written, standard edition setting will be great, but also being able to drop this into any sort of homebrew world or setting will yield the most favor.
No, I know the contest is to write a 5e one shot, but I'm sitting here realizing that I feel like really either of these might do pretty well with other indie TTRPGs. I know Tate's especially would. Not so sure about Sarah's. I don't know if that'll be something we think about, but it's interesting to consider if you could take this story and this module or this one shot and turn it into a different game. That would be really interesting because Tate has let it kind of just be open. Sure, they're elementals, but they're not like stat block elementals. You're not fighting off a big monster boss. So maybe you take this story and use it in any campaign, which would be nice.
Yeah.
I
like
think-
system agnosticism would be really cool. I think the preface of this was probably Dungeons and Dragons, so I know that's probably what they're leaning towards. But being able to just tell the story without the need of mechanics will I think yield extra points for me at least.
Yeah, definitely. We are rounding up closer to the second one, so do we want to go in and have a quick interview with someone and see where they've taken this trap idea and what they've went with?
I was noticing on Tate that he has gone kind of the elements themselves are creating traps. So why don't we talk to him first?
Sure. Let's go over. I'll message Tate to come join us back in the call.
Oh, he's real close to the computer. I wonder if he's making
Yeah,
a map.
He's really intense in it. We'll have to see if he notices. Tate, listen to us, please. Let us in.
Whoops, sorry.
There we go.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, cool.
Whoops.
It's all right. It wasn't that long. Hey, so yeah, we've noticed you've been kind of going in and putting in these traps. Where are you going with traps at this point to add into your story?
I have basically 2 places, maybe 3, that if you try and sneak into any of the camps of the elements, they have traps that specifically do not hurt them, but will hurt you if you are not one of the elementals. Theoretically, if you knew the trick, you could just get around them, but they need to be the kind of traps that, like, you could live with. Because these aren't like old tombs that you just, like, you don't want anybody to enter here. They have to be places that people come in and out of. So for the fire camp, which is the only one I've really set up so far, it's like they put this in the volcano. Their camp is like a brass gate and brass steps going into the belly of it. And yeah, every 5th step or so, you step on it and a gout of fire comes out and you get roasted. But if you're a fire elemental, that really doesn't mess with you at all. And if you are a welcome guest, they just warn you, like, oh yeah, don't step on this.
Fair. That's cool. That's interesting. So you're gonna have them in the camps, is where the traps are.
Yeah, the entrance to any of these camps, and then also, yeah, there are also traps in the arena when people are fighting. Like, I'll have to exactly think of how that works technically, but I like the idea that, oh yeah, for every round, every camp gets to set up a certain number of traps wherever and hide them how they want in the middle of the arena.
Ah, interesting. That'd be cool.
And build strategy around that, which would then maybe let players, if they join a side, say, okay, what traps do you got? And then I list some of those traps. And then you, the player, can place them and know where they're at if you want to just do this very much gladiator combat. And the more I build this, the more I think, I can make this so that it's super variable on level.
Yeah.
Like, it just depends on at what point in the tournament were you called in. It could easily be, oh, you want to do this 15th level? Sure. You are like the town's last resort. They've gotten a dozen other adventuring groups to come in and they have all died.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Having that ability to kind of on a sliding scale give that flexibility for CR is really nice. I am wondering what is if these different elementals are battling and they're only getting stronger and stronger. Do you have a plan for what these stronger types of elementals look like? What they're going to be?
Yeah, I would want them to be impersonations or like impressions of a natural disaster related to that element. So like the fire one's definitely going to be just like a creature that is a volcano, like a eruption of a volcano. Kind of think the Titans from like the Hercules Disney movie.
Very cool. Yeah. That'll be...
Which are even stronger than the leaders, who are still going to be very strong. Like, I'm kind of borrowing an NPC from a home game to make the like leader of the fire elementals, Igna, the Resplendent. And I originally just took what's the angel from Descent into Avernus? The one that's a demon. Can't remember.
Zariel.
Yeah, I just took Zariel and flavored all of her stuff lightning and fire instead of radiant.
Gotcha.
So it's like that kind of level.
Yeah. Okay. Damn. All right.
Well, we're gonna be excited to see where that ends up. But we're gonna do switch over and join Sarah and see where she's going with the trap. So thank you and
Cool.
good luck continuing on. We'll shortly have the final twist out after we finish our interview with Sarah. So
Cool boy.
ready.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see what Sarah's doing. I see in Sarah's notes, trap has been added. So let's see what she has to say about that.
It's also getting more complex. She's adding
And
elements and stages. Is Sarah here with
Hello.
us?
She is.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm right here. Hi.
I feel like I'm talking to ghosts. Sarah, can you hear us? Give us
Can
a
you
sign.
hear us?
All right.
Ooh.
How's it going? How's
it's
adding a
good.
trap?
Okay, I'm really excited for my trap. So as I mentioned before, I'm breaking it into different scenes, and you can see that in the breakdown now. And I'm pulling in the maps to start building this out. So we have the camp, we have the fire, we have the air, and I added my trap in with the air. Basically, they'll walk into a chamber where across from them will be like an ornate, either mural or tapestry that like dictates some like plot points, right? But like if they do a perception check, investigation check, they'll see that the woman in the painting seems to be holding their breath. There'll be multiple checks as they proceed like down the hall, kind of being buffered by hot winds that are trying to knock them over to like take damage. If they don't hold their breath and reach a certain point, all of their magic items will disintegrate. So that's my trap. It's not necessarily like it's more like a pay attention, because I think a lot of times like parties will just try to power through anything. And I like to like force them to stop. Like something is happening here and you need to try and figure out what it is. And I think particularly with D&D, damage isn't the best consequence all the time for like not paying attention, because you can cure wounds or whatever. But it's kind of hard to like retrieve that, cloak of protection that like is just now gone. I'm planning on having like indicators like earlier on to kind of like give them a fighting chance of like, hey, this is tracked and warded against like intruders, particularly like this is a warlock's tower. Like, of course, they're going to take measures against magic items, and try to give an indication of that. But I'm really excited for it because I think it's weird, and it's not something that people will. I wouldn't expect that, and as a player, I'd be pissed. So it's like one of those things where it's like it's fun. And that way I'm creating an encounter without necessarily creating like combat. And that's something that's really important to me as a GM, because combat, particularly in a one shot, can be a whole bunch. Before that, we have a potential for combat as they arrive at the tower. Things aren't as they seem, blah, 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 that kind of a thing. But right now I feel like I've got the overall plot kind of sorted. I'm pulling in like maps and stuff to get that. And then what I'll do is I'll go through another pass. I tried like important checks. I try to call out, so, like perception here needs to be whatever. Where I'm crunched for time, I'm not filling that out a ton, but just giving myself a general idea, because a lot of this would be like filled in based on like what the players ask or what they seem interested in.
Yeah.
But like even the plot as we introduce the trap, I'm like, okay, here's this thing, and it was like, wait, why is this worded? Who was this before? Aha, okay, so now we've got this warlock is trying to create a homunculus to house their dead warlock mother's soul, and that's why she's doing all this stuff. And the other sister's like, don't do that, bitch. Like it's a self-contained story that they can just like be a part of for a moment and step out. But if this is something that like you wanted to incorporate in a campaign long term, you could, because now you have like these three entities, right? Like, why is this warlock mom trapped in the elemental planes? Like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? And it's something you can build off of, because I think like when you're doing campaigns, it can be kind of hard to like have the content. So this is something you could plug and play.
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
Very cool. Sounds like you've got your story lined out, and you've got your trap has some real consequence to it. Losing magic items. Oof. I'd feel bad as a player, but
right.
I like
and
that
it's
you've
like,
included ways to figure it out.
Right, going into like the final boss too, boss, like the final
Mm-hmm.
encounter as well. So like, I've found with players and GMing, like they're gonna do shit that you don't expect, and like
Yup.
just you gotta being a little bit looser with what consequences are.
Be careful.
Uh,
They will definitely attempt to scale the tower from the outside.
That's my thing. And if that happens, then what's nice about this, as they climb, winds get more powerful, right? As they keep climbing, like all these things. And then I can have them roll checks and be like, it feels like it's getting harder to breathe, kind of a thing. Like I can push that narrative in other ways. And that's what I like about this trap. I can plug and play it literally wherever I want, because there's not like a switch or anything like that. It's just a magic
getting
effect.
close to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I like that idea of, hey, you know what? If they try to climb the tower, there's going to be obstacles in their way. But if they can do it successfully, then good on them for thinking of that.
Right.
Because it's nice to not put walls in front of your players, but instead to just make it more difficult to do certain things based off of how difficult you think it would be. One thing I do want to caution against, though, is you taking away magic items from them. In the final fight, elementals will have resistance against all the melee damage and ranged anything that's not spells. So as long as you're keeping that in mind, that's good.
So the plan is I did this in the first session of Bard's Refrain. I like having ads, but like you need to focus your attacks really on one being. So the plan is in that final encounter, it will be subduing one of the twins, depending on which one they decide to go with. Maybe they're cool with this twin trying to like bring their mom back into the world. Maybe they're not, where their loyalties lie is going to be up to them. So really it's going to be a matter of targeting like one of the NPCs, which would then take down any elemental effects, because like the summoning kind of nature of the magic would be gone. So that way, because again, I like brutal combat for brutal combat's sake is not my vibe. I like there to still be an element of problem solving and like having multiple solutions. If they want to like take everything on in that room and go hard, they have that option. But if they can put together, like, we just need to like get rid of this one thing and that can like end whatever, great. But also I will include in that room, there will be a relic that will help them should they be able to like obtain it and get it to help with the final encounter as well. Because like loot's fun.
Can I ask?
Who doesn't like treasure?
Can I ask what inspired you to make this trap? Is this something entirely new to you? Something you've seen before?
I actually, one of the friends that I a person I know in real life talked about a trap that they made or had, and there was something similar. I couldn't remember the exact details, but when you're like a trap, I'm like, okay, I could do pressure plates or whatever. But I remembered this friend talking about it was like a random effect thing, and one of the players like stepped into a room and it removed all of their items, like everything, like not even just magic items, everything was like gone. They got wiped. And I was like, that's a great thing, because now you have one party member that has 0 resources. You're going to have to reallocate, redistribute. You don't have time for attunement. And now it's like a problem solving thing. And I liked that because the consequences, again, like particularly for Dungeons and Dragons, is like a lot of the times it's like, just keep hitting them. Like, just keep hitting them.
Yeah.
And that's what will make this interesting or dynamic. And it's fun to like try something different. Other than just pain. So
well, I'm excited to see how it turns out. We are at the point where we need to come in for the final twist here. So I'm gonna ask Tate to come join us, and I will reveal. We're all gonna find out together, because I don't know this one yet. So Tate, if you can, you're already here. You're really reading my lips. All right, so here we go. I'm going to roll, and as a note for everyone on this one, this final twist has another name to it that I've kind of conned. This is the TPK twist, as I have filled this list out with little in references to TPK and all of our games that we've had. I will explain what they mean, but they all have a little joke with them. So I'm gonna roll, and we're gonna find out. All right, I've rolled a 6. Oh, this is a good one.
This is good.
So, the name of our TPK twist is Can We Keep It? You
Oh,
need to add an adoptable to your game. Some way that the party can have this, some sort of creature or something join their party as an adoptable creature.
I love
We're
it.
not going to say pet, but it's a pet.
It's a pet. I mean, you can make it however you want. Can we keep it is the name. Keep with that theme and that idea. And I will say right now we are technically 15 minutes in, but with our 5-minute interviews with each of you, I'm going to add 10 minutes back to the clock. We have 20 minutes left to complete. I will keep you guys a little bit more updated with the time on this one. But with that, you guys have your final twist. Good luck, and we'll see you in 20 minutes.
Phenomenal. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, thanks.
All right, real quick, let's just talk about some of these other twists that we could have gotten today, because some of these are amazing. Can we keep
Do we want to spoil this? Maybe we'll have another one of these.
They're good, and I love them, and that's why I want to keep them a secret for now.
Oh, okay.
if
fine.
hey, let me just say this. If you follow TPK and watch a lot of their shows, you can guess what a lot of these are.
Yeah. I love
Let's-
number 3 because it's very good. It's very good.
we can give out number 3 because maybe that's a good one just to maybe broaden the horizon of what kind of references we have here. So number 3 is roll geography, a little reference to our Atrium of Aquarius, where Fazul has added a geography roll to figure out where you're at or what's around, and that's the idea of that one. What is around where you're going? You need to have that be important in the game.
People yelling at me in chat for having secrets, and I just want Iron GM to keep going.
No, I like it.
There was the one that I'm like, I don't want to look at the list, so I'm like, if I were to imagine that one of these would be, what was in my head a second ago? I've lost it. No, I had something and I totally forgot what it was. Oh yes, I know what it is. The door is a mimic.
The
Just
door is
mimics.
a mimic. Yep.
No one trusts the door in TPK. It's really a problem.
Yeah. There's a lot of references we can use for the future, and they'll keep getting added. So if we do come back with another one, there's definitely options of getting different things here. But with that, what we did get an adoptable. How do you add an adoptable to a game with elementals? Any ideas? Where would you go with this?
Well, there's the really kind of obvious one, I think, which are the Mephits.
Yep.
Mephits would be really easy to add in as adoptables. What could also just be really interesting is I'm thinking in Tate's campaign, or one shot. We have these gladiators, right, that are coming to fight, these elemental gladiators. What if they have their elemental children here too?
Someone in chat did say fire dog, and I was like, I want it. I need it now.
Fire dog, yes.
Fire
Are you suggesting child adoptables?
Yeah, no, that's you said adoptable creatures.
Yeah.
And creatures is everything.
That's
just
true.
wide open.
Yes, Tyrant is suggesting we steal their children and
Not
have
steal,
them.
Not steal. I'm suggesting you play with the moral quandary here, and you kill their parents, and you're like, oh shit, we have a small fire child now. What are we gonna do? Listen.
No, Mr. Rogers, it is not called a hot dog. I refuse to accept this.
We making Batmans out here, yes.
Oh,
Lava
goodness.
Batmans.
Yeah,
I think one of the most obvious ones for Sarah's is if the homunculus goes wrong, perhaps something does show up in the homunculus, and you get like this weird creature that doesn't understand what it is or what it's doing or why it's here. Maybe it is some soul from the elemental plane. Who knows? So I think that could be interesting as well. But I feel like there's probably some sort of other solution. I'm not totally sure.
Listen, there's a solution for everything. For instance, we've already had one elemental adoptable in TPK history. We had the Zaratan and
We also had
Harpers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
what kind of creature is Sloppy?
Sloppy's a monstrosity, I believe.
Yeah, he's a monstrosity, but he's the goodest boy.
No, there isn't. He has a name. There is a name for what Sloppy
He's an
was.
Utiog.
Oh
Oh,
yes,
Tia.
the one that we all could not pronounce properly.
But yeah, I mean, we've actually even had others. Some of the I know one of the good tables is you get a steam method as a familiar. So I mean,
Yes.
that's just that right there could be part of it just to throw in. And I know Sarah's actually even had that happen in her the Bard's Refrain. I think Elliot at one point had a steam method as a familiar for a little while, and I know Ty, I guess, in if you think about it, in our Wrath of Many, there's a couple of different possible elemental adoptables. I know chat's already mentioned them. Delmar,
Yeah,
which is a healing
Wrath of
steam
the
method.
Many. Wrath of the Many has Delmar, the Delphamander, which is a flying flying air elemental salamander that has healing properties. That was homebrewed on the spot, just kind of like this by Sir Heckalot. Then we also have Rocky, the Aviva, which is a giant air elemental bearcat. Which is huge size, basically the equivalent of like Appa sized. So yeah,
And we
there's a few different things.
You have things too like the fire spark that Sander has as well, as a little bit of a fire elemental type adoptable there. Yeah, they're all over. There's a lot of options. I'm kind of curious to see where each of them go with this. I know Sarah's is a little bit open to just on the way you could find it on searching through this, or maybe it's in this tower that she's described. Tate kind of with the open area and the different camps, perhaps there's a fight that they break up and they can add someone in from there, or maybe just adopting one of the camps is the way of getting it adoptable, right? If you join up with the earth elementals, here's your little earth elemental buddy that you can take with you into battle. Maybe it's a Zorn or something like that. It's kind of a lot of
sometimes
places you can go.
I think a lot of times we think, oh, adoptable, it has to be small and it has to be cute. But honestly, it doesn't really. Like it could very well be you join one of these camps in Tate's game, and you are given a elemental companion, like a bodyguard that goes around with you, and that's technically an adoptable. Like we have in Harper Season 2, we have the orc, I can't remember his name, that was adopted, that I don't think anyone's talked about in like months, but he was adopted in like the 3rd episode, and he's back in the hideout with us. So there's a lot of different things that could be an adoptable, and I'm interested to see what happens.
As a note for all of us and all of our viewers, I've just let our contestant know, but there are 10 minutes left. 10 minutes until they figure this out. We'll call time and we'll take a quick break and we'll walk through them. But for now, I mean, there's a lot of options here, but the time crunch is kind of coming. I'm kind of interested looking at these. I don't see any maps down yet. I see some character stat packs. I'm curious how where they're going to come with these, or if they're going to have handouts for people, or they're just going to kind of wing it from there. I know. Oh, I did just see Tate has some.
Tate has
sketches.
pets in his camp things. He has sketches. Where is that?
Yeah.
I need to find
Have you guys looked at the different pages that Sarah has?
I have not. Oh, they're on
up
different
top.
pages. There are maps. Oh, good. Yeah, it looks like they have a lot more than I thought they did.
Quick thing, I have been corrected. Vor, the bugbear, is the companion that is in Harper Season 2. Thank you, chat, for enlightening me. But also in chat was mentioned the rock lobster, which is just perfect. It's just perfect. But yeah, it looks like we have some interesting maps here that can be used.
So a rock lobster, that's an earth elemental, right? Or is it a water elemental with like earth tendencies, or like?
or is it a mud elemental?
Oh, I think that's an earth elemental that lives in the elemental plane of water, like kind of down near the bottom. Oh God, is there a bottom? I don't know. So yeah, there's oh God, elementals are cool. I'm glad that we had elementals as our discussion point today.
Yeah, it was a good roll, lucky roll from that. As well as I'm really curious how maybe the adoptables play into the trap a little bit from here. Can your adoptable trigger these and cause some problems? Who knows? Maybe a way to avoid the problem. Be interesting. Maybe you get a wind elemental in Sarah's game, and that can help deflect that trap of that oppressive wind.
Oh yeah, it could be interesting to see if you have this experience where you get this adoptable, maybe it opens up some kind of inroads with some of the other creatures in the one shot. Like you find and save this air elemental baby, and then you go into the tower, and the air elementals are like, "Oh, yeah, you're cool. You brought our child back," kind of thing. So there's a few things that can happen. Let's see. We're gonna let them work until the end. We're not gonna interview.
We're gonna have our big interview after the break, so they need all the time they can get to finish these up, I think.
Does anyone in chat have any questions or suggestions? Or
I do think now might be a good time for some chat conversations or inputs. If you guys have anything, please feel free to bring them up, and we can kind of walk through those. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, again, we're coming down there on time. I think this is the biggest thing, seeing if they can finish up everything they have. Luca says, "How dare you? This is awesome." Not sure that's a question, but we'll take it anyways. I dare. That's how.
I have a question for the two of you. If we don't get any questions from chat,
Sure.
Looking at our two contestants and looking at what they've created so far, what is one supporting and one kind of critique comment that you have for both of them? That obviously we don't have the totality here, but from what we've seen so far, do you have any critiques and do you have any praises for our contestants?
I mean, I just starting from the top. I mean, I'm really excited about all of these, seeing where they go. I think Sarah has a really cool storyline of these characters, of these pivotal NPCs that are very important. I think that's definitely the biggest strength I've seen so far out of what it looks like we're going to get there. On Tate's side, I'm really his story more revolves around the player's choices. I think of kind of how they want to interact with the environment, not necessarily any individuals in it. So I think it's a very interesting difference between them of interacting directly with a person versus interacting with a large group of the city, and kind of figuring out how do you solve this problem for a town versus how do you solve a problem for a person. So I think that's definitely the big dichotomy that I see in it right now. So
I'll say that I do thoroughly enjoy Tate's one shot for the same reasons, that it's sort of system agnostic. It doesn't have specific solutions. You kind of have free roam, but also in a one shot you kind of want some like specific direction to go, and I worry about that. Also, he spent a lot of time. Right now he has made a fire camp, a water camp, and a wind camp with like descriptions of like a lot of things in all those areas, which is very cool. But also, I feel like he hasn't added anything else to the plot or anything like that. And so it becomes like it's less of a one-shot writing and more of a like, here is a town. It's just like a location description more than anything.
I'm curious if he's planning on doing more of a theater of the mind with that, based off of the descriptions of them and that kind of thing, and just having his world to play in, and then as the players come in, go in and describe what's happening in each one. It does seem like that might be the way he's pointed with the way he's set up his notes, at least.
And certainly this is something he could expand upon if he wanted to keep writing it and just keep writing extra camps. But I feel like there isn't any. He hasn't added anything to the outline of the one shot, as far as I can tell, in a little while. And he put a lot of work in the beginning to like describe why the town is important, but then hasn't gone back to what happens to the town after they've gone over to the arena? Do they just chill and wait, or is there other things that are going to happen? Are there any, what do you want to call them, like events that'll take place while they're doing things? The countdown clock is ticking down. As for Sarah's, it is a traditional D&D setup. You find a person who gives you a mission, you go find that mission and hopefully save the day. I like that she is adding story elements that are tied into the direct player challenges. And she's added a baddie now. How exciting. But it's just, I feel like it is a more traditional route, and I've seen a lot of that, so it's not as exciting, but it's still a good approach to go down because it's condensed. Whereas Tate's is like wide open world, Sarah's is like, that's everything.
You're under 2 minutes left here, so.
All right, at the 2 minute mark, we have a couple questions in chat. First being from Last Hit Point Hero, are we the defending champion route for the next show, or 2 new GMs?
Well, a defending champion. I'm not quite sure yet. If we do something next, I might get a little more firm on actually picking out some iron DMs and then maybe calling challengers to issue to one of them. I've had a lot of thoughts on it. If you want to discuss with me, you can, but currently there's not one planned, but it sounds like there is interest, so maybe there will be a bracket or something
I think what's happening is that you have been chosen to do this more often because everyone's mad at you for being having a great idea.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Congratulations.
It also definitely will end up being whoever's available because scheduling beeth a bitch.
We're at 1 minute.
And second, as the clock ticks down from Chrissy Crits, let's just reiterate how we will be judging our one-shots and what the second half of this experience is going to be like. Purple?
All right, yeah, so judging, we're going to have both of our contestants one at a time walk through their one-shots with all of us there. We're all going to be present. So Tate will get to see Sarah will get to see Tate's and see what they've both been coming up with. They have no knowledge of what the other one has come up with as of yet, but we're going to walk through it and we're going to kind of just ask questions and point out things that we like and things that we might see problems with, and kind of that's the whole thing. It's going to be very impromptu, very loose. There are no official judgments on these. Our official judgment, I guess, on it that we're going to do is we're going to be putting up a Twitter poll. And so our plan is we're going to put that up there, and anyone who watches or anyone who wants to go out to the TPK Twitter, they can vote on which one they would like to play in. That is our judge for how you want to do this. Vote on the one shot that you want to play in. So
yes, text 1 for Sarah to 555 TPK1. Or 2 for Tate for 555 TPK1.
All right. Well, we've actually gone over it, but I'm going to call it now. That is the time. You guys can both put your ears on. Yeah, so it's done. We're actually going to take a quick break, quick 5 to 10 minute break. Let everyone kind of relax from that 1 hour of stressful writing and figuring out everything, and then we will come back and we will walk through each of the one shots one at a time. So that is the plan. Proper, you can take us out, and we'll see you guys in 10 minutes to have our judging on these one shots. Hello and welcome back to Iron DM. We've finished up creating our one shots and we're ready to go through and review them. So first off, we're gonna have to figure out which one we want to do first. For that, we are actually going to roll in chat to figure out who's gonna go first. So right now, 1 through 10, it's going to be Sarah, and 11 through 20 is going to be Tate. So I'm gonna let that D20 roll. We got a 17, so that means Tate is going to go first with the between 11 and 20. So we are ready for that. Tate, take it away. Walk us through. We may interrupt you at any time with questions or thoughts, but Go ahead. This is your show.
Yeah.
Show us your one shot.
All right, can you guys see the first outline of one shot handout? I think I pressed the right button.
I can see it in the roll 20.
All right, well then we might just need to move camera because at least
Yeah.
on stream it's not showing up.
Do you have
I found it.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. All right, so I just kind of want to go through my process from like what I first thought and how it's going, because I think this is kind of a good outline to like the way that players would interact with this in a way. So I would want to start off with basically players are already an adventuring team. Honestly, for this one, you could pick kind of whatever level and then just pick creatures of the right level to go up against them. But it would end up being you've been invited to this small town that's in the material plane, and they have a problem because they have a whole arena showing up of elemental things fighting each other. It's causing some problems. Normally this is a pretty idyllic little town, and we'll get to the town in a second. But it's hard to fish and then have people come in and trade goods and also be a tourist attraction when there's like earthquakes happening and thunderous explosions and like fire raining from the sky every once in a while. It's not great. And so they're tasked with all they got to do is get this away from here by whatever means necessary. And then depending on the party, this is either like help someone win the tournament or convince them to end it in some other means, like change what the contest is, like I said before, or, just convince them that the tournament would be better served somewhere else. And I really like to play, especially one-shots, just kind of loose as to like, all right, what you guys gonna do here? And try and keep it simple by giving people choices, but once they make a choice, that cuts off the other ones. I find a lot of faffing about in, especially D&D, but a lot of tabletop systems are like, oh, we want to check out everything. It's like, no, you've chosen this path. This is the path you're on now. And so the crux of it would be, as soon as they pick an elemental camp to interact with at all, that's it. The other ones won't talk to you. They, as far as they're considered, you are of that camp now. Go away.
So don't make the first one you go in angry. You might end up in trouble,
so the town would be pretty simple. I only have like a few characters in it, but the point would be that anyone you talk to, I've given them some personality. I've added some extra NPCs of like a cook that likes their ingredients, a beggar who's actually like the master thief of the town. And they could tell you a bit about the town and where it is, but mostly they're like, hey, you gonna solve that problem that we hired you to do? We all got together and put money in a pot to solve that problem. Like, they're all aware of who you are and what you're doing, so they're not going to entertain a lot of faffing about here. No, go do thing. And sort of use that very reasonably, in my opinion, to... Oh, did I share that? Yeah. So I just shared the little town sketch. There's just a few descriptions of them. But yeah, they're going to very reasonably, in my opinion, direct you towards the stadium. The one thing I didn't get done while I was doing this was actually drawing out the stadium. And I'd love to put more work into that. I just didn't really have time.
The 1 hour, the 1 hour restriction gets everyone in some ways, right?
Yeah. And so I've just shared possible events with you guys, I believe. So yeah, you enter the stadium, and mostly the things there is gambling involved with this. I didn't get time to sketch out maybe some concessions, because I think that's very funny of like, what do elemental people consider concessions? And
Pop rocks,
the elemental
they're just
people,
rocks.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, and I like the idea that they would invite like people from the material plane to like watch. So maybe someone's making money off of this. I just didn't get time to sketch that out as much. But yeah, there'll be material plane people there. There's someone betting. I think it's the earth elementals that are like more interested in that, since they seem to be more interested in wealth in general and precious metals. So they're running it, and sketch out some NPCs that are sort of interacting with that. And you could mess with them if you want, but really they're here for the same thing you are. And then, yeah, from here, you'd have to sort of pick which camp are you going to interact with. And I think that the townsfolk, or at least the mayor, would warn you. They are really territorial about this. And then you can decide whether you're going to converse with them, you're going to join them, or not. I think one of the things that I have on there for the fights is they'll have fights in between the actual, like, tournament that are just there for fun. And you can join that and prove yourself and, like, use that to get in with a group.
Gotcha.
And I'd basically just build player characters that are about one level lower than the team, and just the classes they didn't pick and races they didn't pick. Just kind of randomize it together, see what comes out.
Cool.
And then I sketched out the different camps if we wanted to go over those, but it'd really just be each camp might have has a different personality as to what might work better for them. I don't want to limit what people try.
I would love to see what you broke down as a camp and what you deemed important to include in a one-shot for the players.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say also, just as a little thing, you mentioned the gambling and the people watching is kind of interesting as we were talking about the different elements. The trap came up, and you know, a lot of people in the chat were mentioning like the idea of a metaphysical trap, or like kind of not an actual trap, but holding people in there. And Tyrant came up with the idea there for a tourist trap. You know, you're bringing the people in to watch their arena. It's kind of interesting how maybe you weren't even thinking that, but it kind of ended up as the same way of people.
I really do like that. I think that if I expanded this to more than a one shot, that would be a fun extra like element. But I did kind of simplify what you could do here to make it a one shot. If this was a whole campaign, oh for sure, like the trades guild. Like the head of the trades guild would be like secretly giving you bad information or messing with you because he kind of wants us to keep going because he's like, no, we can work on this.
I love the idea of like a tourist trap. Like there's a spell that determines how much money you have on you and you have to spend a certain percentage to escape. Like, you know what I mean? Like just really lean in.
Really
just lean in. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh man. If the theme had been wizards fucking with people, then that would have been the trap.
Yeah.
That could have been a very good trap.
Like just like a number highlights above your head and you're like shit, and then the rogues just got like way more gold and everybody else is like, what?
An elemental casino, and that's the trap, is that you have to spend on. Oh, that could have been a good one. I didn't even think of that.
That's cool.
Slowly writing this into my bullet supplement. Because it's casino themed.
I could absolutely build a casino inside this arena. Again, if I'm making this more than a one shot, that's 100% a thing.
Just a betting table.
Yeah, but let's run through.
Yeah, I'm gonna share.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the wind one because I wrote it so late that I don't think you guys have gotten a chance to look at it. Oh no, you already have the fire camp up.
So a good thing to kind of note here is so we've obviously the entire one shot is going to be based around our first theme, which is elementals. Great.
Yeah.
The second twist that we gave you, which is traps, it's cool to see exactly what kind of traps that you have incorporated in here. Do you mind walking us through your idea for traps, how you developed that idea, and then tell us a little bit about the mechanics here?
Yeah, so when it came to traps, I had two thoughts, and I kind of did both. Of one, when you're approaching the camp, if you decide more to sneak in, and again, if this isn't a one-shot, I'd let people try and sneak into the camps they're not associated with. But in this case, probably by giving them a timeline of like, you need to solve this soon, or possibly by like just impressing upon them with NPCs that are not lying that like they will beef up the traps against you if you pick one, so it'll be harder. But the idea that every place has a trap to prevent you from getting in uninvited. And then every camp also has a trap that they put in the arena while you're fighting. Or while they're fighting, and they can kind of place wherever they want. So if a player joins a camp, they can help place those in the arena, but if they try and sneak in, they have to deal with the trap of how they prevent people from breaking in. And I really liked the wind one, actually, because the idea was like, yeah, if you are a wind elemental, you probably don't actually need to cast a spell to fly, you can just kind of do that. So I like the idea of these sort of small floating, like almost fey-ish creatures that look like they're made of cotton. And there's just a bunch of them like around this giant floating camp that's made of silk. And if you are using a spell to fly there, they know that, these little creatures, and they just sort of like glomp onto you and then start causing you to have to roll concentration saves.
Gotcha. So they try and stop you from being able to get up there entirely, right?
Yeah. So like the underwater one, it was more like, oh, they populated the ocean with like vicious piranha-like creatures, except for a very specific path through the coral that if you don't know it, you will not find it.
Very cool, very cool.
So, you know, stuff like that where it's like, if you are one of these elementals and you like are used to this environment, you're fine. There is no problem. And then, yeah, the arena trap for the wind ones, I like the idea that most of the wind elementals aren't really heavy-footed, like they can kind of float along. So theirs is triggered by pressure. if something touches a wall or the floor too much, then this like sort of whirlwind blade pops up powered by a tornado and starts moving towards you. You kind of have to dodge out of the way or disrupt in some way. I basically give it an HP and then a deck save. But like the HP is, if you can hit this blade hard enough, it shatters and the tornado goes away.
That's really cool. And then you have other traps for the other camps. And the plan is you kind of, I think you mentioned there's like a tournament level that you're going to kind of try and beat the other ones when you join one. Is that right? Yeah.
It was one sort of in the outline, but basically every of the 4 elemental camps, they make sort of a round robin where everybody fights everybody. And if one camp can beat the other 3, they win, but they have to beat all 3 of them in a row without losing. And since they've only picked combat, it becomes this big problem of, well, the fire ones are always going to lose to the water ones, and the water ones are always going to lose to the earth ones, and in the circle. So, like, how are we going to do that? So it's just going to keep escalating until, they obliterate a volcano or cause massive earthquakes or, a tsunami. It's not going to go well.
So if you put the players in that area, are they going to go up against the other traps then? So like when they fight the fire, there'll be a fire trap that they won't know where it is that you'll set off.
They'll get to place the traps for the camp they're part of, and it's the other camps. All 3 of them will be on the field, even if they're only fighting one at a time.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's being aware of that. Like the water one is just a bubble of water that's basically like a less acidic gelatinous cube that holds you in there, and then you just have to hold your breath. Hope you can hold it for a long time. Strength saves to get out. Hope the rogue doesn't get it.
I do have I have a few questions, but I do want to talk about, and if you want to use a different example from the wind camp, then you're more than welcome. But let's talk about the pets or the tamables or what was the specific adoptables?
Can we keep it?
So, I definitely took that more of like the pet route. Like none of these are like a goblin friend that you're our friend now. So for like the wind one, it is they have like they're breeding griffins as sort of a mount for anyone who can't naturally fly. And I just want there to be like one of the guys that like raises them is just like super amenable to just giving you one if one seems to like you. You can just go up to like, it'll be a thing that's very clearly described as like, and over there are the griffin stables. And if you go up to one and animal handling it enough, it's not going to be hard to charisma check your way into, I have a griffin now. I think my favorite one is actually the water camp one, where I'm like, oh, there's just these like, they keep like these sort of toad things as pets a lot. And there's one that will follow you, especially if one of you doesn't want it to. Like it will glomp itself onto the one that dislikes it the most and then follow them forever. And just like, it's not a danger. It's not even like going to be a detriment to stealth. It's just, it likes you.
I like that you've written, they are friendly and there's one that will absolutely follow you for no reason.
Yeah. Well, I wanted each pet from each one to have just like a slightly different feel to it. So like the fire one is more like there are sort of a fire newt that acts like a dog. Not fire newt's the regular creature, but just like a lizard that can climb on the walls and is actively on fire all the time. And while they're kind of aggressive, there's one that is easily, you can hand it a treat and then it will like you. And now it's a pet, but you do have to like tame it.
We did make the Pockbrox joke, and your Earth Camp pet is a rock-eating rodent.
Yep.
So well played there, Ty. You called it first.
Or
I think it was Purple who said
I like
it.
that one because it's like a pest that it would be a mild thing that they're like, something's eating our food rocks that are like our supplies. And then you could very easily be like, it's a big rodent and it's cute. I'm imagining Hamtaro, but like 3 feet tall.
Also, someone in chat did say Fire Dog, and we really wanted to see Fire Dog. You gave us a fire salamander, which I appreciate.
It says
I want it to act like a dog that has. Yeah, I want it to be dog-like, and it has spider climb, and it's just actively a little on fire all the time. So.
What a hot dog! This chat has also made that joke.
No Purple, no bad.
And then I made a leader, a rebel, and an NPC for each camp, just to sort of give a few NPC flavors, and then there are a few extra ones based on some of the extra flavor text for the other categories.
That's really cool.
So,
really cool.
Can I ask, what made you? What made making the Wind Leader, the Wind Rebel, the NPC, what made those things important to you for writing a one-shot?
I think it's the minimum number of NPCs you can make in a location and make it feel fleshed out is to have 3 characters, 2 of which have some kind of relation, and 1 who's just there for fun. It lets players, especially in a time crunch, and maybe this is a better one-shot for players who understand that it's a one-shot, and they're like, we do kind of need to move this along. But they still have, like, they can just talk to people, and there'll be some fun. And it also helps me develop the camp, like, conceptually of, like, if this is what the leader is like, and this is what, like, the sort of counterculture to that leader is like, and this is just, like, a person who is generically there, it adds flavor. Like, I wouldn't have thought of floating swords that talk as their guards, but I really like that idea as soon as I typed it down. And so, yeah, now they're just, like, they just have, like, floating swords as their guards that are just around. They're just wind spirits possessing a weapon.
Yeah, I really like the leader versus there is a counterculture even within each camp. There's a dynamic, you know. Everyone's maybe on the same side, but they're not necessarily all on the same page all the time, or they have some of their own reasons. I think that's a really cool and great way to flesh out your world. I
also think it's just good for players who want to do something a little more subversive of, like, yeah, let's fight the power, let's go. And I like to have that in any of my settings.
Cool. Purple, how are we doing on
we're getting
time split here?
We're about to split over. If anyone has any last questions,
I do have some.
You're allowed to ask one too if you would like.
I just say I'm just listening. This is great. Like it's crazy to see what a different direction he went with the same, like, items, and it's funny. Like, it's just, I would love to, like, sit down and, like, talk to Tate, like, about, like, where his inspiration come from, like, what kind of media he consumes, to, like, see where, like, the things kind of tie back and if there are any similarities between us, because I think we did go in very different directions.
Ty, you had a question, I believe.
Yes, I have a few, but I will keep them short. Tate, how does your one shot keep your players on track?
I think that having, like, this big event that everyone that you could possibly interact with is so focused on means that any NPCs you can interact with are going to be like, look, this is the thing I'm doing and the thing I care about. And conversations not about that would kind of be sort of, yeah, sure, I guess, but, like, they're not primed for it. They're not really, it would let me roleplay NPCs that direct players more, especially if there's a lot of tension. The one-shot version of this is like, oh no, they're about to get to the point where things go bad if you don't do something. So every NPC leader on down is a little worried about that.
Right. I know you mentioned, like, if you join one camp, then the other camps kind of shun you. So if there is that kind of that general sense of, hey, we need to keep this going, perhaps even a deadline time crunch, like you have one day to figure this out because the energies are getting too powerful.
That'd be fair.
I do think that is a great way to do that. What is your intended CR for this one shot?
Well, I built this so that I could kind of have a range. You could do this with a bunch of level 5 characters, and then the CR, I would just kind of have to... I tend to use Kobold Fight Club to just calculate what, for a number of people of level 5, is an appropriate number of monsters and such. I also generally just set it at deadly, and then up it a little more, and then give them more health items. But so I'd want to give it a range. If someone wanted to do a bunch of 14th level characters, then you probably join just before the round where the leaders step into the arena. So you might actually be joining them and, like, 1 or 2 guards, which would be a significantly higher CR. I might not have said on stream, but some of the concepts of this are from a campaign, like a side mission on a campaign I did at home, where I just took Zariel, like the angel, and flavored her to be an elemental, and I used that for, like, the leader of the fire of, like, the city of Brass. So that would be the kind of CR of, like, oh no, you guys are really, really good, and this is the town's last resort before volcanoes start erupting.
Right. I think it is. I think it's cool that you made this kind of a sliding scale. I know we talked about this in part of our interview. If you were to flesh this out anymore and kind of make this an official adventure, I would advise and recommend you to kind of put that as a preface in the very beginning and say, hey, you can kind of change this around, and here's, like, the appendix of different stat blocks and monsters that you can use to like make this however you want. But yeah, I think that's really cool that this could be an adventure, same adventure basically, but, like, this is the timeline that you could be arriving. Last question. Is there a motivation for the elementals being here at all? Is this just a competition of skill and kind of a primal posturing, or is there some sort of nefarious grand scheme happening here?
I kind of see elementals as not just in physical form, but like mentally and emotionally a force of nature. So this is just a thing that they are compelled to do. It is kind of just posturing, but it's like this something happens every like 1,000 years in setting is the way I imagine it. Of just like, nope, this happens. They pick a random place, and sometimes a town is unlucky enough to be in that place that sort of fits all the elements. Like the town has a volcano, it's by the water, there's quite dynamic weather, so there's a lot of wind there, and there is earth nearby. So it just kind of happens. But if I made it a campaign, I would want there to be a larger machination to it.
Right.
But it's a one shot.
Yeah.
No, it just happens. This is just it.
This is a great comment from my question. Tate, this is gonna sound like not a complaint, but Tate, did you write a one shot or did you write a whole module?
I might have accidentally written a whole module because I tend to bite off more than I can chew.
Does this count as a one shot?
If I give the restrictions I've mentioned of like, no, only one, and there's a day, and you got to make a decision quick, it could be a one shot. It just,
I think
it has the potential of going off the realm a lot.
Yeah, I think the time constraints that can be put on this could definitely make this a one shot, especially if you're using real time for that constraint. I do think that this could be potentially a multi-shot as well. So there's definitely ways that you can kind of play with that. You can also make this a whole freaking campaign if you wanted. So
this feels to me like a whole arc as opposed to a one shot. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying the challenge was to write a one shot, and it feels like so much more than that.
Yeah, that's the thing is I almost never write one shots really. They end up being part of a larger world and a larger campaign. They're just a single event in it, and I definitely might have put more event into this than I meant to. Also,
my next question is again, this is not what the challenge was, but I want to hear your opinions on it. How do you think you would adjust this if you were to play this outside of 5e?
I think that.
Do you think this fits anywhere outside of 5e?
Yeah, I think a lot. As long as it's very fantasy-ish, it would work. I could even see this in an urban fantasy setting if I really swung it. It would mostly be me internally adjusting the lore for these characters, possibly. Maybe changing like the gear and equipment they have. At least where it is now, especially where I haven't fleshed out stat blocks and a map. It could kind of go anywhere, honestly. Like anything that has magic and elementals. Heck, the Dresden TTRPG? Why not? Let's go.
Okay, very cool. Shall we switch over?
I got one final one, and then let's switch over to Sarah. So my final one, it's maybe a little bit open-ended, but how do you think it ends? Because you kind of went through of what the fight is, what happens when the fight's over. If the players win or if they don't, I mean, they might come up with something crazy, but what is your go-to? How do you think it's going to end before the players do anything too crazy?
I think that the tools I've handed the players, the two likely ends are they join the tournament and physically win, or they use stealth and subterfuge to sabotage one side so that someone else wins. The element that they're most likely to beat and knock out of the win 3 in a row thing. And so that would end with the tournament is over much earlier than normal, and a lot of the elemental people are like a little like confused and disappointed, but they're like, but that's it, I'll see you later. And like it sort of disappears into the ether, this whole arena. Maybe there's like an island left as this sort of stone floating structure eventually just descends into the ocean. And then the town pays you and you get to have like a thank you party, I guess, for you saved our town.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, seeing something like that. That makes a lot of sense of how that would end then.
Or you convince them to do a tennis tournament and same thing happens. They're just everyone has a good time instead of trying to kill each other.
It just turns into Mario Party at that point.
Yeah.
You
just do Mario Party mini games. That works. Any last roundups you want to give us, Tate, or we'll switch over to Sarah then.
I mean, not in particular. I just wish I had time to actually draw out a map and do stat blocks. But I could run this at home. I would not run this on like as is at home. I would not run this on stream without a little more work.
Yeah, and that was kind of the goal for this. I probably maybe should have made that a little bit clearer. Yeah, this is for running as a home game, not necessarily as a stream, because running as a stream takes a lot more work setting up things and being ready. So completely understandable.
I could guesstimate the numbers on a lot of these NPCs and like their stats and sort of just roll with it as is for home, but I wouldn't want to do that to a stream that might end up having to go long and then everyone's schedules are thrown off and all that. That's not cool.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, with that, let's switch over to Sarah. Sarah, let's see what you have to offer with your one shot.
Okay, so I think the best place to start is with my outline. So I have a set way that I write my like stuff, and so I've gone through and done that. Basically, I start out with kind of opening exposition. For this purposes, I tried to put the hook or like the plot line at the top, and then I break stuff down into scenes. So there's 4 scenes total. Here's what kind of happens here, 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 and here. I went with a very traditional, like straightforward one shot. Here's your hook, here's the adventure, and here's how you go through it. So in mine, it's assuming that the party's traveling together, or perhaps they're traveling separate, but they all come together at a camp where there is a young woman who looks battered and bruised, who is either going to ask them for help or advise that they be careful going forward. There are elementals about in the land. She is headed to this tower on the horizon to kind of handle it. They can interact with her and through that get the additional kind of story of what's happening here. I'm a huge fan of like when you're players being a part of something bigger, it's not really about them. You know what I mean? They're just in there for a moment of the NPC and the world story before they move on. To me, that's what a one shot is, right? Is you get a glimpse and then you're out. So they're coming into a moment where there are 2 sisters who are at odds. If I had more time, I could more properly develop this. But essentially, Orla, the NPC that they're going to encounter, is trying to stop her twin, Aaron, from creating a homunculus using elementals to resummon their like evil sorceress, just sorceress mother soul from the elemental plane where she's been trapped there. And that's it, right? So they can, as they go along, they'll get to know Orla better. They can start to like discover information about Aaron and her motivations, and also about the sorceress as they go. Given the time constraints, most of this, if I were to run this today, would be improv. It would be like, well, what sounds cool? And that's what I love about collaborative storytelling, is where the players are interested is where I could fill it out. And like a little bit, we'd be writing it together. If I were to run it now, it would be different every single time, like to the max. But from the camp, they can, I like to give them choices, but like everything kind of ultimately leads in the same direction because it's a one shot. So they can leave the camp with Orla or they can leave by themselves. Either way, they will be borked to the second, and I can show the maps too. So I've got my camp, right? I don't know if that can be seen on screen, but I've got my camp here. We can pull you over. There we go. That's pretty great. The next thing is they would be moved to the gate of the tower, which would be like very fire themed. Like clearly there's something disrupting the environment, right? Like creating a sense of like something's off here. Like this isn't normal. Where they would arrive at the gate where 2 Azers and gargoyles would be sitting there. This is to introduce them to like the first like conflict, right? Like they can fight their way through this, great. They could talk their way through this, great. They could sneak past this. There's a whole plethora of things, each having pros and cons, right? If I find if they talk to my baddies, I'm going to reward them for that. This kind of, they could get in more information or they could not. They could just fight their way through this and that's that. Which would, if they were to talk to them, they could get more information about what's higher in the tower, right? Like, I picture these 2 as very like jokey kind of guard types. They are going to be non-combative to start because I like that. Like, oh, we're going to storm the tower and it's going to be the thing. And then the guards are there and they're like, hey guys, what's going on? Oh no, we're just here to make sure like nobody goes in there. Like it's fine. Like, why do you want to go? You know what I mean? And like kind of subverting that murder hobo, like kind of drive.
I very much get the idea of like what are the two British guards from Pirates of the Caribbean there that were
Right,
just
Yeah,
kind
the
of
yeah.
a little
genteel
bit
guards.
dopey,
Yeah,
but like, wait a
yeah.
minute, what do you mean? Type of kind of
Right. Like I'm just here doing the thing that my boss told me to do.
You could also play it the other way, where they're actually like quite well educated and friendly and like quite intelligent.
Absolutely.
They
Yeah.
could have almost any personality, and it still kind of works. It's like, yeah, we're just dudes doing a job.
Right. And what I like about leaving it like loose is that depending on what kind of characters my players bring, I can play off of that, right? So if I have somebody who's just like, I'm gonna fuck shit up, these guys can be, well, that's not very nice. You know what I mean? Like I can like push back
yeah.
against whatever and create the encounter more, because again, I'm a narrative RPGM and that's where I play best. From here, they could get information about the trap they're about to face from these. I pictured like a scene being like, right, yeah, we'll be down here for when you get back. I wouldn't hold my breath, like kind of like wink as they continue on, kind of a deal.
Giving them a little clue of what lies further
what's
ahead
to come,
too.
right? Which takes me to my air chamber. Here, there's not much fleshed out here, but my trap was that they enter a chamber. If they actually look around, there's clues as to what's happening in this area. But I think I wrote description, and I can read that just really quickly. Steps into an ornate chamber, light shimmering off the walls, a cool breeze kissing the napes of their necks. A tapestry hangs on the far wall of a woman surrounded by crashing waves. If they do a perception check, if they actually take the time to figure out what the hell's going on in here, they'd see that the woman's like a water genasi. It looks like she's holding her hand out to two individuals. And it like the iconography looks like she's kind of like holding her breath, different things. As they step into the chamber, the air will start to move more quickly and more violently. And as they go, the wind will get stronger and hotter, and it'll make them feel like tighter. There'll be a series of checks, right? So like a strength save to not get knocked down, a con save to like not like take exhaustion from the heat. And the idea is to kind of like stagger them to be like, are you going to keep pushing forward, or are you going to try and figure out what's going on here? And then if they just keep pushing forward, they lose all their magical items, unless they're holding their breath. So trying to like get them to think like what's going on, or try to like put together, and through those checks, communicating information, through their questions, communicating what's going on. What I like about this trap is I can put it anywhere. So if they decide to sneak and like scale the tower, like, okay, the higher you go, then we talked a little bit about this. Or if they totally subvert my fire guys, like I can move this wherever I need it to be. It's not necessarily important that it be here, because I think with a one-shot timing, everything is really critical. And then we have the end, the big finale. They get to the top where this twin is there. Again, I really like subverting expectations. So it's just a massive, oversized library where this nerd girl is just like sorting through books and goes, oh, like, okay, I'm kind of busy. Like, I'm doing my thing. We can have the interaction between the two NPCs if they've allowed Orla to come. If not, if it's antagonistic, I pull in my big baddies, which is a fire and air elemental, to kind of like begin combating. The idea always being that like these two sisters, whether it through relics or like natural inclination, have connections to each of the elements, right? So there's a sunblade is my big shiny, like lore around that being like it was forged in the heart of the fire plane, and has a deep connection to fire elementals, which is why Erin has a fire elemental at her whim. She's typically more inclined to air. Orla's typically more inclined to earth, and their mother was water. And so this idea that she's trying to summon this homunculus, blah blah blah. That, and then for like the ending of it, like, I mean, it depends on what the players want to do. Do they help Orla stop the sister? Do they decide like, no, this is like, why would we want to stop her? Like, we were going to do this thing. And then there's consequences, or do we not care? Do we just like, yeah, this is dumb. We're going to try and go and kill everybody, or, they just, that way it's open-ended, but either, no matter what happens, there will be a bookend to their part in these characters' stories. Like, and you did this thing, and you helped Erin, and she summoned her evil sorceress mother back into the world, and who now has all 4 elements at her whim instead of just one, and chaos now reigns. Or, you convinced Erin to like let go of her mother, and Orla and Erin are like reunited, and whatever, blah blah blah. And then for my pets, I wanted to be a little more subtle. And again, I was on a time crunch, so I'm pulling very much from Sarah. And my pets are elemental cats. So then they would be scattered throughout the dungeon, right? So like as you walk in, you've got Flicker for fire, Splash for water, Pebble for earth, and Gust for the air. I would just have these little kitty cats scattered around my dungeon or in the library kind of a thing. Depending on the players and how they chose to interact with them, would determine kind of what the cats would do. If they speak primordial or have different, speak with animals or whatever, we could flavor that the cats could be a source of information or not. They would have unique personalities, and potentially you could collect all four. But it would be determined by like their approach to the situation at large. So that's how I chose to incorporate that. I also think with the Azers at the beginning, if you were a real chill dude, you might earn a drinking buddy or something. That just depends. I wouldn't say that that's like, can we keep him? But I'm open. Clearly, I had a talking god painting and I let my players literally carry it out of the temple. I'm a huge fan of adoptability. So that's kind of the thing in a nutshell. No, you're good.
No, I just also immediately have the image of each of these elemental cats causing problems on purpose in some way that only they can with their element. Like the fire cat is curled up on a book that is now lit on fire. The wind cat is knocking things off of library shelves. The earth cat is just like getting dirt in something that shouldn't, like really nice upholstery. Just the image of that would be so great and could have so much character without any prep at all.
Exactly. It's just like you have this thing and here's this. If I had more time, I feel like this room and my like library in particular, I would fill out. My hope being is like the Sunblade would just be on a table. So if they sneak in without her noticing, they can actually get the Sunblade and now have control over the fire elemental using that in combat. There would also be a variety of like potions just scattered about. I'm a huge fan of using the environment to help you. Even if you don't know what it's going to do, just like going for it. So there would be a variety of potions, a variety of scrolls that, like, if the players chose to interact with the environment, could help them, particularly if all of their magic items got nerfed. Like, this would be a room full of, like, resources, maybe not exactly what they had, but that would be helpful to them, because I don't want them to feel like they've just been, fucked over. But I do want them to creatively think about what they do. You can just walk into this room. That's absolutely a choice you have. But wouldn't it be more interesting if you like looked around and like read the spine of the book and this one happens to be like pick up lines for air elementals? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be better? Could be.
Taming a fire cat and what treats it eats.
Yeah, I really
bound in
like
fireproof leather.
I really like the idea of having resources around to kind of give the players and let them kind of take pieces of what's around and use that to help affect the fight that's currently going on, especially after if they fail the trap and lose all their magic items. Now they kind of get a chance to make use of what's around them in the environment and kind of pull those tools in. And I definitely think it lets the players be a little bit more creative with what they're doing. So
and I think I feel like a good one shot, you have the narrative thread beginning to end. They're going to do what they're going to do. But if I can kind of guide them along the thread to get to the end, then I've done my job as a GM. Like, I think the allure of like building out this lore and who are these sisters and what's their deal, I'm tempting the players with either gold or, they are the daughters of a local noble who will give them a favor. You know what I mean? Something that they can like carry forward. Or even just like, this is the one shot, this is what we're doing. So sorry, not sorry, you got borked to the entrance of this weird, fucked up wizard tower. You're in it now, kid. Like, it's just a pen. But I tried to leave it loose. And like I have most of it in my brain sauce. But I don't know. I think this would be a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, definitely. Any questions to start off? Anyone got something they want to start with?
Yeah, I have.
Let's say Ty, go ahead. I'm sure you have like 7.
I guess
I have a few. Hey, I want to ask the same questions of both contestants here. Obviously, some have been somewhat answered, but I'm gonna just kind of reiterate so that we have that kind of that coverage. So Sarah, same question. How does the one shot keep the players on track? And I kind of want to kind of focus in on one specific area. You have this scene on the top of the tower, where you have one side against another side and two different goals being achieved. I'm wondering if the intent here of hey, we can either fight this person, or if we choose not to fight this person and let her just be, is this other NPC going to try to fight this person we have to defend, or what are we doing here? So what are the stakes that you're putting here so that if, let's say, the players just say, hey, we want no part of this, and just leave, does anything happen? How do you keep them engaged with the story?
My hope is that as they traverse through the tower and like establish kind of the lore of what's going on and kind of see impact of different things, that I could build into that. Because again, like you can lead a character to plot, but you cannot make them engage. And I think accepting that as a GM is really important. So I intentionally left it loose. 100%, they could just like turn around and leave, but I would ask this: how are they going to get out of a magical tower that they were borked to? How are they going to get out? They're going to have to try and figure out that's going to introduce a totally new set of problems. And here are two people conceivably who could answer those problems. However, if they're antagonistic to one or both, it limits their chances of getting out of this tower. So that would be my main thing is like, you're here now, you can leave, great. But like, how do you suggest that you do that? I also think that giving them choices, or like just kind of laying it out, like, what do you want to do? How do you want to engage in this story? What's meaningful to you? Because again, like I'm all about that collaborative storytelling. Like I the GM don't know what the right ending for this is. Like I could maybe like sit down and like figure it out and say, this is what Sarah would prefer. But I like leaving it open so my players can show me the parts of my story that are interesting. And through that collaborative, playing off of who they bring, what they pay attention to, I could kind of tweak the information to match that and keep them engaged. Because here's the thing, they might not even care. They might get to that top and be like, I do not give a shit about these guys. I don't give a shit about any favors or sunblades or anything. I don't care about this. And it'd be like, okay, you are under no obligation to. We'll just have to figure out something else.
Right. So I do like the idea of, you're just kind of trying to keep it open, and hey, if they decide I don't care about any of this, how are they going to get out? So they do kind of don't have to, but they're given a strong push.
There's a reason to engage.
Engagement.
There's a reason to engage. And the other thing is like, I would just ask them, okay, like, what do you want then? And then I could tweak or add elements of this to get them to engage. Like Proper says it all the time. Like, my hope is they're sitting at my table. Why would they sit at my table if they didn't want to engage with the thing?
Right.
But I'm open to it.
There's also a certain amount of buy of just a one shot of like, hey, this is a one shot. Can we like do the one shot because we've set up to do this one time? It's not like a full campaign that there will be a game after this. If they decide to leave, it's like, well, now you've just ended the one shot without it being satisfying for everyone else. I think players are more likely to go along for a contained story.
I do think, though, using the trap in the specific way of disintegrating their magic items, I feel like that also adds a kind of like, well, shit.
Can we get them back?
What the
like,
hell?
Are they gone forever? Like, can I talk to this woman and have her like get my magic items out of the like disposal? Like, what's going on? Like, like
you could present them like in a cage or some bubble or something on the other end of the arena and be like, one of them can open that. Yeah, like if you just need a little extra push.
Right, that's my thing is like, I'm going to have my own motivations, but I think the power of like a good one shot is going to be playing to the players' motivations, right? Why are they there? What's the thing that drives them? Some players care about loot. Some players care about narrative. Some players just want to see your world burn. And so like, which option can I present to them that will like make that happen and have everybody have fun? Because at the end of the day, it's about having fun.
Right. Let's see. Do you think this adventure can be used in a different system and be the same story?
I absolutely do. Because I was thinking about that following. I would love to play this in an Iron and Maya situation, which is like a very light rule system. And we could put this is something that could be easily put into like a Feywild situation where it is like if you tell an NPC something, they believe it is the truth. And so now it's like this weird kind of they're encountering like elemental effects and they're trying to get to the end, but there's this storyline that's happening on the side. Hijinks could ensue and it could be really great because how layered things would get. I also think this would be a good fit for Monster of the Week. Reflavor it to be a little less fantasy. You're in a city setting. A girl comes in at a diner and says, I need help. My sister's gotten into some weird shit. I don't know what she's doing. And then you have to figure out, what this woman's trying to do and how to stop her, right? That I feel like there's multiple systems. This is loose enough with a narrative. And even with the creatures, I'm going to jump ahead to like on a sliding scale. Like I had set this for level 5s, but you could easily add more baddies, change the baddies. Instead of Azers at the door, they're fire elementals. You know what I mean? Like that's immediately going to up the challenge rating, and you can play and tweak with it however you want. It's very open. You can make the checks harder. You can make that's would be my big thing too, is like making these NPCs, you have to try a little harder to engage with them to like increase or decrease the challenge rating.
Let's see. Okay, so you kind of said that you like to leave things a little bit more open. What do you see to be the possible outcomes here? Let's say they side with one versus the other. What comes from that?
Okay, so I mean, immediately off the top of my head, there's 3, right? You side with the NPC. You dance with the date you came with, right? You side with Orla, who's like bound and determined to stop her sister from doing this thing, and you do, right? Whether that results in Erin's death or just subduing her. Now, like if the sister dies, Orla is now, she has her mother's tower and she lets them go and thanks them for their help, paying them and sending them on their way. If Erin survives the encounter, they have a moment to see these two sisters either reuniting through, conflict resolution or like, again, being subdued. And like, that's the thing. And they can go on their merry way. For whatever reason, they decide to side with Erin, right? And depending on how that goes, they can help finish summoning the homunculus, subduing Orla to use her powers, or so helping search through the library for another option, and bringing an evil sorceress into the world who then bamfs out, and then it's like, well, shit, you did that, but that's the end of the story, guys. Or again, they could just say, this isn't for us, you guys do you, we're gonna look for a way out, and they begin that, we were gonna find a way out. Either way, like, again, you can't force people to care about your story. So, and as a GM, like, you want them to care, but you need to plan for them to not. Like, so making sure that you have options for them to go and directions for them to take, I think is important. But for one shot, having an end in mind. Sometimes the end isn't satisfactory. Sometimes it is just like, well, that was kind of a waste of time. But like, that's adventuring, I think. You know what I mean? Like, that was some weird shit we just did. Let's keep going. Like, let's keep it moving. I intended to go to Walgreens to like get nail polish, and I came out with like 50 other things, and some old man talked to me in a corner for 5 hours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes that's the way it is.
Well, Proper, do you have any questions you want to ask?
Sorry, I've been doing like 7 things behind the screen, so I haven't been able to pay attention as much as I would love to.
I have more questions.
Go for it.
But
Keep going.
I hate to dominate the time.
Or
here.
Tate, do you have a question? Or did Purple, you have a question?
I
don't have
one
a question. Oh, you.
But yeah, so I guess you kind of mentioned this in the break. We had a little bit of chat about this, but you kind of mentioned that normally when you were preparing something, you would actually have a lot more prepared. Do you think you are ready to, if you had 4 friends that are like, we got characters ready to go, and they just said, go now, you're completely ready for that?
Yes. I mean, of course, like for a home game, this is totally prepped. I would run this in a heartbeat, as is, just filling in for my brain and improving through the items. If this was for stream, all I would want like is maybe 1 additional hour And that's for my own perfectionism. I would want to pull in music. I would want to type up some additional like descriptions just for me to have. And like I have the tokens for the sisters, but creating handouts so the players could see and engage. Just so like minor detail cleanup. But like, honestly, if we didn't have a panel, I'd be down to run this like with you all, like after the call. Like I 100% would love that.
Well, that was the original intent with this.
I know. One day.
One day, if there's enough time to do stuff like that, that might happen. I guess another question I had. Oh God, did I lose it? I lost it.
If you need a second, I don't have a
yeah,
question, but I just like, I just love that this is so, like, you made this a single adventure in a way that you could really dig into the NPCs, and like, I really wish that, I think you understood the assignment better. Like, you nailed that. I went with the first thing that came to my mind, and now I'm like, oh, there's so many other things you could do along this line of someone is doing elemental stuff nearby, and you just happen to be roped into it, where I'm like, no, you get called in to do a thing. What is a big thing? Town terrorized by elemental stuff. Like, my mind went in such a different direction that made so much more work. And I like how much more fleshed out this is, each of the NPCs and their motivations and their personalities and appearance and stuff. And yeah, I don't know, like I'm immediately like wishing I'd gone in a different direction.
Well, see, but I love what you did with yours because I feel like, when I started my outline, like I had to like tell myself, like, quit trying to establish the world, quit trying to establish like that stuff you can establish on the fly. You need to establish motivations. Like, and I wanted to be like, they're the daughters of a noble blah, blah, blah. And like, I could feel myself wanting to write a story rather than a one shot. But what I love about yours is like, you have so many options for them. And like, it really, like I'm left mine open, but there is like a singular track. Yours is more like a web of like, ultimately, like they're going to ping back and forth to get to an end, but there's more connection points. I feel like yours is a lot more dynamic in a lot of different senses. So like, as I was listening, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I don't know how you thought of that fast. Cause I was like, I got point A, I got to get into point B. Like, let's get them in a line. Versus like, okay, here's 1A, 1B, 1C. Like I couldn't not boom, dude. I think
that's also like a difference in process too. Cause even if I had gone with the same concept of there's a person doing a thing that you need to stop like right now, it still would have been very much like I designed the environment around them and how they're going to get to you. Because yeah, I don't think I've ever designed any one-shot or campaign of like, this is kind of the path they would go. It's almost always an event is happening and these are the things around it that help you with it. So I think that's a very interesting, different way of going about it, narrative versus environment.
And I think for full disclosure, the way I started GMing is I would find a random hook generator and I would say, here's my hook. Okay, great. And roll with that. One of my favorite ones I ever did, it was literally just, you run into an NPC on the road who begs you for help, insisting that they are a genie and someone has stolen their lamp.
And I think
that was the hook.
Is reflected in the one shot because like my DM experience has been my players want to tell a story. All right, what characters do you want to play? What story do you want to tell? So I build a world based on the things they hand me instead of you are doing a narrative. And I think that's I like that way of doing it. I have no idea how I would do it in reverse that way. It would be so like opposite to me.
It is a very different GMing style to take a random bunch of characters and funnel them down a story than it is to take a bunch of characters and just tell their stories. It's both require you to do a lot of planning because in Tate, your version, you are writing one-shots by like taking random information from other characters and putting it in. Whereas the other way around would be you're trying to take those points of information and add them back into the story that you're trying to run. And I think that a lot of people start with the latter, which is the like, there is this story. That's what I'm going to be doing for one of my shows. And I wish I could do more of the like, these are the stories of the characters. This will become the story of the whole campaign. But it is a good like framing device to at least start with a narrative arc as opposed to an open world. I can't imagine running a purely open world scenario.
That would stress me out.
Yeah, so the only one shot I've run on like stream was I wanted to do Nazi zombies from like Call of Duty, and so yeah, I just made an environment where like you can't escape, waves of zombies are coming, and that's like the only way I know how to build stuff like that. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I
like
think
here,
difference.
yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say Noir kind of brings up a great point that kind of emphasizes these two differences, which is, you know, going in making a movie or going in making a TV show kind of thing, where that's kind of the difference between a one shot and maybe a campaign or an arc is in a campaign or an arc you have time to let the character's background
develop,
come in, whereas with the one shot or the movie you kind of got to hit with a punch of here's the character, here's what they're doing, you get their whole life in the first 1 minute of who they are, and now it's the scenario after that. Kind of thing.
And I think like that plays to like my approach here, and this is going to make me sound kind of shitty. I don't really care about the characters that my players are bringing until they're interacting with the NPCs, because I don't know. Their long-term motivations may or may not be relevant here. Like if someone's like on a quest for revenge to like kill the evil being that killed their mother, that's not really relevant here. What's relevant is like the narrative that's happening between these two sisters.
Are they going to help these sisters? It's how they interact with the characters, not how they've come to be the person they are. That doesn't really affect what's happening right now.
Right. Not every moment is about the players themselves in a one shot. Now it could be like if I'm having a player who just is not interested in engaging, I could hint at, oh, but you're in this library and perhaps there is a book here about your da 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 da, or like, you know, like I can use that to like push them to engaging, but ultimately like my job as the GM is to shepherd them through this thing. And so I'm gonna do that. Like I'm not gonna be overly concerned about like, you know, where, and I think that's informed by my player style as well. When I play one shot, I roll my thing up and I'm like, I'm ready to go. Here are my stats. Let's go. Here's my personality. Let's go. So I think it's just a play style, all the things. And that's what I love about this challenge is like players watching this now having a better understanding of like what it would be like sitting at my table. Like what kind of options are available to you? What are the things that I prioritize? Like where would I head in a one shot situation? So they can now know like, yes, sign me up. That's the kind of play style I like, or hell no, never, not in 1,000 years. Does she know what a stat block is?
We know that you know. Come on.
Yeah,
One thing. Sorry, go for it, Purple.
I was gonna say we're getting close on time. We're technically over our time, but we were told we can go a little bit late for where the next one starts. I would like to kind of get to a wrap up, so kind of want to ask both of you, and you can each answer in turn, whoever is ready or not. But where do you think the strength of your one shot comes from? And after you answer that, if you have anything you want to say, you can say it quick, or a quick question or something like that. And then I'd like to go into outros, and so we can get on to the next panel and not take up their time, be respectful of it. So that's the question for you too, if you want to answer it.
Tate, go ahead.
Okay, sure. I mean, I can always talk at a moment's notice. Everything is improv, I promise. I do like the openness of this one shot. Like I said, generally when I make a one shot, I make an environment and an event and let people run at it. And for a lot of other one shots I've made, I have to also be like, all right, your character can be anything, but they have to have this. For the zombie waves one, it was like, you have to have some reason you ended up on this island, and I described the island to them. In this one, it's just, you're an adventuring party. Like, it has so much less of that requirement on the character they build. They just have to already get along and get hired to do a job. Like, that's it. And so I like that I've made it that open. And I think with a little tweaking, it could stay as a one shot, or like we said, a campaign. And I actually am quite pleased with that, because I didn't think I'd get that much. I do wish I'd had more time to flesh out more of these characters and stat blocks and personalities and interactions. But sometimes you can't have that for a big one shot if you're going to make it an arena like this.
Especially if you're going to make it in an hour.
Yeah, but even for like the time constraints of playing a one shot, I don't know that I'd really add more than a few NPCs and locations, maybe. And even then, that'd be pushing it.
Yeah, I think for mine, like the Bard's Refrain has been like a huge educator for me of like what actually do you need to like have, right? Versus like a one shot versus a long-term campaign. And I'm very grateful for that experience, and for my players for like being incredible as I like learn and navigate that space. What I like about the one shot that I've made here is that this could be over in 2 hours. If they manage like whatever, it could be over in 2 hours. But if they really want to engage and dive down and like get into nitty gritties and explore things, it's flexible. I think that the story is interesting enough and could be filled out with depending on where they push. And my players always push on parts of the stories that I don't expect. So what I like about this is the potential for that collaborative storytelling. Like you could I could finish this outline, I could hand it to somebody, I could run this 50 times. Every time it's going to be infinitely different. Even like the details of the relationship between the sisters, or like the motivations of the mother, or like how many cats they like. Do they kick the cats? Do I have the tower like collapse on them and bury them all alive? Like
Why would you kick a cat?
Why would you do that? But like, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much here. Like
some people play evil characters.
Some people play evil characters. But it's open and loose and fun. And then like it can be, I also like this, you can plug and play it into a campaign. I really like that. Like you let this evil sorcerer out, great. Now there's this evil sorceress out and you've got to do something about that. Like, did you just bring the BBEG back into the world? Like that's, I like how flexible and fluid this could be, but it could just be a fun night with friends. And it's like, hey, remember that one time when like my magical pants disintegrated? Like that's pretty fun.
All right.
Never make your pants magical. That's asking for problems.
Hot pants.
Final questions or rounding notes? Otherwise, we'll go to the closing.
I think the only comment I want to make is I think it's really cool to see that both of our contestants here took something away from this competition. They noticed the strengths and the unique abilities of each other, and very much like the old adage, iron sharpens iron, so do DMs sharpen DMs. So it's really cool to see growth and appreciation for each of you coming out of this. So I think that's awesome.
And as sorry.
You're good. Go.
As I offered to both the GMs, if they want to flesh these out and write them, I will format them and we will try to get them up somewhere with TPK. So if you want to, go for it. And we appreciate your time and your energy.
I will be running this. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm going to be doing it because this is fun.
We got to run this somewhere. We'll see if I flesh it out.
Right.
Enough to like, give to people.
Yeah, I said this at the top of the stream. I think this is such a cool idea. Like this is it's a neat way to come together and say, this is how I do it, and just share and be inspired by each other's like choices. And like, I didn't think about that, or I didn't consider that. And I think that that's incredible. Purple, this is like such a cool thing. I hope that this is something that TPK does in the future, to continue this collaborative, like making our stories better, making our games better, improving everything. I'm not gonna lie, stressed me out, but it was a lot of fun. And I really do feel like it gave me confidence as a GM that like, this is something that I can do. Cause I think GMing can often be you're working in a box and you're like, I don't know, is this good? I don't like, is this suck? Did I do a good job? And this is incredibly validating to sit with other GMs and be like, yes, and play and tweak and compare. So I love this. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it.
Yeah, I know I was talking with some GMs before this anyways too, and they were saying, even when they play a one-shot with people, sometimes they don't necessarily get feedback. They don't know what, a lot of times players don't give feedback. So if you can as a player, this is my one little bit of advice, give feedback. Tell a DM what you like. Tell them if something didn't feel as fun as you wanted it to. These kind of things, I mean, they don't necessarily need to be harsh criticisms, but basically telling what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy can help a DM immeasurably. So talk to them, tell them what you loved. I like to strive for that in players. Like, don't be afraid to say that. Tate, you had something yet?
Oh, just, you want to do this again, even with different systems? Like, you want to do a Cyberpunk Red version of this? I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, I sounds like there's a lot of interest, so.
I want to see this with different systems. I also want to see this with game design itself. What can you write? Can you write a one-page game in an hour?
Well, that's going to be a lot of what
I'm out.
Mads is doing tonight. I think. Is
Oh,
that'd be interesting on that. Yeah, I could dig that. I'd be down to try that.
Or if you want to go full on itch style, do a game jam of a specific game and write supplements of that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be
Alright,
really
well,
cool.
Anyway,
about 5 minutes left, so I think it's we're gonna start and do some outros and give some respect to the panel behind us and make sure we're done before they need to start. So with that, we can just go in a circle. We'll start doing clockwise and start with Sarah on the overlay, if you would.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Osirix Franco. You can find me, if you like my face and the words I say sometimes, you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Osirix Franco. I do a lot of TTRPG stuff here on TPK Roleplay and over at Nat20. The only thing I'll plug here is I GM a game, The Bard's Refrain, here on TPK Roleplay, and our next session, part 1 of the finale of this, is next Saturday. And I'm really feeling a lot of feelings about it, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to tell that story with the players. And I hope, thank you chat for coming and supporting. Thanks again for having me. And I'll just kick it down to Tyrant.
Hey everyone, I am Tyrant. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Dr. Tyrant. I, for one, am extremely excited for the finale of Bard's Refrain for personal, selfish reasons. Because I don't know if Sarah wants to talk about that. But as for what's coming up, only thing I will plug right now is later today, starting at 3:30 Central Time, will be a panel that I am hosting. I will be joined by Sarah here, Last Hit Point Hero, and DMF Saint to talk about acting for TPK. So if you want to hear some awesome player testimonies and get some tips and tricks, definitely come check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's move on over to Proper.
hello everyone. My name is Proper Nerdy. I am a TPK staff member, role player, game designer, etc. I make lots of pretty pictures and videos, including a lot of the stuff you see around you. So I hope you enjoyed that. You can find me on Twitter as Proper Nerdy, on Fiverr, and also on Itch if you want to check out Generational that Purple mentioned early on in the stream. It is a completely collaborative storytelling world builder that is very, very fun to play. Oh, thank you so much, Sir Heck. Thank you. That link goes right to it, so check that out. And I keep forgetting to say these, so I'm going to say them now. At the end of TPK Con, I'm going to be running a panel on game design called, which I feel woefully I'm not a game designer, am I? On Bullet, which is a new system on Itch. It's very, very cool, very, very weird. And so they just finished their jam of supplements for it. We're trying a whole bunch of different versions of them and trying a new one-shot that was just written for it. So we're going to try that on the end of TPK Con. And then 2 days later, I got cocky and decided I wanted to run a one-shot based on ghost lines. So if you like spooky trains, come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. The soundtrack is choice as hell. And I've got Luca and Cole and Chrissy and... Purple? Is that, yeah, you're the last one. Yep. I always forget. The 4 of them are going to be really cool. And last but not least, or no, not last but not least, but Tate, if you want to go next, feel free.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Tate Washburn. You can find me on Twitter actually at kinda_writing. I had to be difficult and have my Twitter handle not remotely my name or anything I go by online ever, but it's fine. You can also find me at the Neon Lights Roleplay. Here on Twitch. We do a lot of tabletop stuff. I run a cyberpunk game every other Sunday. This Saturday, I'm in the Seven Sons D&D campaign run by Foxy over there. It's going to be good. It's like in a few hours at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I believe. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I talk about tabletop design and writing and narrative stuff, and often just sarcastic jokes and memes. I'm very tired. Anyways, back on to Purple then.
Yes, I am Purple Phil. I was your host tonight, along with my lovely co-hosts and contestants, who I appreciate so much for coming out and doing this to me, as well as all of chat being here and being so hype and really supportive. I really appreciate it. This was an idea I had, and I was not sure how it would go. It turned out amazing. I'm very, very happy for everyone that came out and helped with it. Sounds like a lot of people want more of this. If you want more of it, feel free to message me on the Discord. My DMs are open. If you have ideas for what we should do, I will welcomely bring it on. Other than that, look out for the Twitter poll. We'll probably be posting that out later today. Yeah, please go vote for that so we can figure out who we think people want to play and what game they want to play. I think that's it's gonna be good. It's gonna be exciting. Other than that, I guess we have a panel in a little bit, so I think we're clear to round out. Thank you for joining us this day on the first ever Iron DM, Iron GM. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.